The day my mother stole my company, she wore her favorite pearl necklace and that signature red lipstick that always made her look like she was going to war. I should have known something was wrong when she insisted on meeting at her lawyer's office instead of over our usual Friday lunch. My name is Sylvia, and until yesterday, I was the CEO of Stellar Events, Chicago's fastest-growing event planning company. 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears had transformed my little startup into a multi-million-dollar operation. Now, I'm sitting in my empty apartment nursing a glass of wine, wondering how I didn't see this coming. "Darling, this is for your own protection," Mom had said, sliding the papers across the mahogany desk. "The market is volatile. You're young, inexperienced with real crisis management. Let me handle this." "Protection?" I'd laughed, scanning the documents. "This is a complete transfer of ownership, Mom. You're taking my company." "I'm securing your future," she replied, her voice sharp as a blade. "Your father would have wanted—" "Don't you dare bring Dad into this." I slammed my hand on the desk, making her lawyer flinch. "He believed in me. He supported my dreams. You're just being a mother." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Sign the papers, Sylvia. Don't make this difficult." "Or what?" Her smile turned cold. "Or I'll have to remind you who co-signed your initial business loans, who introduced you to half your client base, who has the power to make every single one of those clients disappear overnight." My hands shook as I remembered all the times she'd helped me over the years. Each favor, each introduction, each piece of advice. They weren't maternal support. They were hooks, slowly sinking into my flesh, giving her leverage for this exact moment. "You planned this from the beginning," I whispered, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. "Every time you offered help, I taught you everything you know about business, darling. Did you really think I wouldn't have an exit strategy?" She tapped the papers with her perfectly manicured nail. "Sign." I signed. What choice did I have? She'd orchestrated everything perfectly, like one of her famous hostile takeovers. Only this time, her target was her own daughter. Hours later, my phone buzzed. It was Taya, my best friend from back home. "Sylvia, are you okay? I just saw the press release about Stellar Events' change in management." I laughed bitterly. "That's what they're calling it? What happened?" "Remember how you always said my mother was playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers? Turns out I was just another pawn." My voice cracked. "I lost everything, Taya. My company, my clients, my reputation. Come home," she said without hesitation. "Your old room at my place is still free. The coast will do you good." I can't just run away. It's not running away. It's regrouping. Remember what Coach Martinez used to say? Sometimes you need to step back to see the whole field. I glanced around my luxury apartment, filled with things I probably couldn't afford anymore. My mother's voice echoed in my head. "Never show weakness. Never admit defeat. Never let them see you bleed." Well, guess what, Mom? I'm bleeding. But you taught me something else, too. The best revenge requires patience, planning, and perfect timing. "Taya," I wiped my eyes, straightening my spine. "I'll be there tomorrow. That's my girl. We'll figure this out together." After hanging up, I walked to my window, looking out at the Chicago skyline I'd conquered once before. My mother thought she was teaching me a lesson in power. Instead, she taught me exactly how to destroy someone from the inside out. Every manipulation, every calculated move, every cruel strategy, I'd learned from the best. I pulled out my laptop and started typing. Resignation effective immediately. The email was short, professional, and would hit every major client's inbox by morning. Let Mom deal with the chaos of mass client confusion. It's not like she could blame me. After all, she just effectively fired me from my own company. My phone pinged with a text from her. I expect you in the office at 8 a.m. sharp. We need to discuss transition protocols. I didn't reply. Instead, I booked a one-way ticket to the coast and started packing. Mom always said business was war, and she just launched the first attack. But she forgot something crucial. She taught me everything I know about warfare. Game on, Mother. You wanted to teach me a lesson? Well, class is in session. The salty breeze hit my face as I stepped out of Taya's beat-up Jeep. Seabrook hadn't changed much in the decade since I'd left. Same weathered boardwalk, same peeling paint on the storefronts, same seagulls fighting over forgotten French fries. Home sweet home, Taya said, grabbing one of my bags. Though I guess it's a bit different from your Chicago penthouse. Actually, it's exactly what I need right now. I inhaled deeply, letting the familiar scent of ocean air replace the knot in my stomach. Somewhere my mother wouldn't be caught dead visiting. We climbed the stairs to Taya's apartment above the local bookstore. The wooden steps creaked under our feet, each sound a childhood memory flooding back. Your timing's perfect, actually, Taya said, unlocking the door. The summer festival committee is desperate for help. Their event planner just bailed. I froze. Taya, I didn't come here to. To what? Use your award-winning skills to help your hometown? Heaven forbid. She pushed the door open, revealing her cozy two-bedroom apartment. Besides, you need a distraction, an income. Before I could argue, my phone buzzed. Another news notification about stellar events. I clicked it before I could stop myself. Emerson Whitfield announces innovative direction for stellar events. I read aloud, my voice bitter. She's already rebranding everything I built. Hey, Taya snatched my phone. No more hate-reading news about your mom. New rule. A knock at the door interrupted us. Joseph, my old high school debate partner, stood there with a casserole dish and a sympathetic smile. Thought you might need some comfort food, he said, stepping inside. My mom's famous mac and cheese. Still your favorite? Joseph? I couldn't help but smile. You haven't changed a bit. Except now he owns half the commercial real estate in town, Taya chimed in. Including the building where they're holding the summer festival? Joseph shot her a look. Subtle. What? She needs a project. You need an event planner. It's perfect. I held up my hands. Guys, I appreciate this, but I'm not ready to. Jump back into event planning? Joseph set down the casserole. Good, because this isn't some corporate gala. This is about community, something your mother never understood. The mention of my mother made me wince, but he had a point. She'd always dismissed small-town events as quaint and provincial, just like she'd dismissed my initial dreams of starting small and growing organically. Fine, I said. Tell me about this festival. Joseph's face lit up. Let's discuss it over dinner. I know a quiet place. No, Taya interrupted. We're eating this casserole and drinking the emergency wine I've been saving, and you're both going to help me convince Sylvia that this town needs her. 3 hours and 2 bottles of wine later, we'd spread documents across Taya's coffee table. The festival's previous plans were basic, almost amateur. See? Joseph pointed to the budget. They're thinking too small. This could be huge for local businesses. And look at this venue layout, I muttered, sketching on a napkin. If we move the main stage here, added vendor booths along the boardwalk. There's my event planner. Taya grinned. A text notification lit up my phone. My mother's name made my stomach lurch. Darling, your absence today was noted. Let's discuss your role in the new organization structure over dinner tomorrow. The usual place. I showed the others the message. Delete it, Joseph said firmly. You're not her puppet anymore. As I reached to delete it, another message arrived. This one from an unknown number. Ms. Whitfield, I have information about your mother's business practices that might interest you. Meet me at the Harbor Cafe tomorrow at 2 p.m. That's cryptic, Taya said, reading over my shoulder. And potentially dangerous, Joseph added. You can't go alone. I won't. I looked up at my friends, feeling stronger than I had in days. You're coming with me, both of you. Now that's the Sylvia I remember, Taya smiled, the one who never backed down from a challenge. I picked up the festival plans again, my mind already racing with possibilities. Maybe Joseph was right. Maybe this wasn't about jumping back into event planning. Maybe it was about remembering who I was before my mother's influence, before Chicago, before everything went wrong. One condition, I said, looking at them both. If I do this festival, we do it my way. No holding back. We show this town, and my mother, what real event planning looks like. Deal, they said in unison. As we worked late into the night, I felt something I hadn't experienced since starting Stellar Events. Pure, uncomplicated joy in creating something special. Tomorrow might bring mysterious meetings and more maternal drama, but tonight, surrounded by old friends and new possibilities, I was exactly where I needed to be. The Harbor Cafe smelled like coffee and secrets. I arrived early with Taya and Joseph, choosing a corner booth with a clear view of both entrances. At exactly 2 p.m., a man in a crisp suit walked in, scanning the room until his eyes landed on me. Ms. Whitfield, he extended his hand. I'm Elijah, a corporate lawyer. Thank you for meeting me. These are my associates, I said, gesturing to my friends. His presence felt too polished for our small coastal town. Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of them. He slid into the booth, placing a thick manila envelope on the table. I represent several investors who've had concerning dealings with your mother. Join the club, I muttered. This is different. He lowered his voice. We've uncovered some irregularities in her business practices, patterns that extend back years, including her recent acquisition of your company. My heart raced as he pulled documents from the envelope. Financial statements, contracts, emails, all bearing my mother's distinctive signature. She's been running a sophisticated scheme, Elijah explained, creating shell companies, manipulating valuations, using inside information to orchestrate takeovers. Joseph leaned forward, his real estate experience showing. These property transfers, they're all dated within days of major market shifts. Exactly. Elijah nodded. Your mother didn't just take your company, Ms. Whitfield. She's been systematically absorbing businesses for years, using information she shouldn't have had access to. But why come to me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Because you're the only one who knows how she operates from the inside, and because, he hesitated, we found your father's old files. The cafe suddenly felt too warm. What about my father? Your mother claimed she inherited his shares in the family business after his death, correct? When I nodded, Elijah pulled out another document. This suggests otherwise. Your father left his shares to you in a trust that would mature on your 30th birthday. But I never received any shares, I whispered. She told me Dad left everything to her. Exactly. Elijah's expression hardened. She intercepted the trust documents and forged your signature. You should have gained control of the family business 2 years ago. Taya grabbed my hand under the table as Joseph swore quietly. We need your help, Elijah continued. With your testimony and these documents, we can build a case, but it has to be handled carefully. Your mother has powerful friends. And enemies, apparently. I studied him. Who are these investors you represent? People who want justice, including Juliana Franklin. I nearly choked on my coffee. Juliana, my mother's pet protege? Former protege. Your mother burned her too, about 6 months ago. She's been gathering evidence ever since. My phone buzzed. Another text from my mother. Your silence is childish, Sylvia. Don't forget who taught you everything you know. Looking at her message, something clicked. The summer festival, I said suddenly. We can use it. What do you mean? Taya asked. My mother monitors everything I do, right? So let's give her something to monitor. A big, splashy event that'll keep her attention while we work with Elijah. Joseph caught on immediately. The perfect distraction. And with my properties involved, it'll look like you're just trying to rebuild your career in a small market. She'll underestimate it, I nodded, just like she underestimated me. It's risky, Elijah warned. If she suspects anything, she won't, because she believes I'm exactly what she made me, ambitious but ultimately weak, talented but easily controlled. I straightened my spine. She has no idea who I really am. And who's that? Taya asked softly. My father's daughter. I turned to Elijah. I'll help you, but on one condition. When this is over, I want everything in the open. Every scheme, every lie, every manipulation. The world needs to know exactly who Emerson Whitfield is. He nodded solemnly. That's the plan. Are you ready for what that means? This could get ugly. It already is ugly. I gathered the documents, my mind racing with possibilities. Send everything you have to my secure email and get me a meeting with Juliana. As we left the cafe, Joseph pulled me aside. Are you sure about this? Taking on your mother legally. It's not just business anymore. It was never just business. I watched a seagull dive for a discarded sandwich. She didn't just steal my company, Joseph. She stole my inheritance, my confidence, my trust. She stole years of my life. And now? I smiled, feeling more like myself than I had in years. Now I'm taking it all back. Starting with this festival, we're going to make it so spectacular that every media outlet in the region will cover it. Perfect bait, Taya grinned. Exactly. I linked arms with my friends as we walked along the boardwalk. Mom always said the best traps are the ones your target walks into willingly. Behind us, Elijah made a phone call. She's in. Tell Juliana to get ready. The game is on. The coffee shop buzzed with morning energy as Juliana slid into the seat across from me. She looked different from the last time I'd seen her. Less polished, more human. The designer blazer was replaced with a casual sweater, her trademark severe bun now a relaxed ponytail. I have to admit, she said, stirring her latte, I never thought we'd be on the same side. Funny how betrayal changes things. I pushed a folder across the table. These are my plans for the summer festival. Take a look. Her eyes widened as she flipped through the pages. This is ambitious. Celebrity chefs, regional artists, corporate sponsorships? In Seabrook? Think bigger. I leaned forward. We're not just planning a festival. We're creating bait. Every major media outlet within 300 miles will cover this. And where there's press, Emerson will come sniffing around, Juliana finished, understanding dawning on her face. She won't be able to resist. Exactly, but I need your help. You still have connections with the sponsors she stole from me. Juliana's expression hardened. Not just from you. That woman promised me partnership, mentorship. Instead, she used my contacts, drained my resources, and left me with nothing but debt and broken promises. Sounds familiar. I pulled out my phone, showing her the latest press release about stellar events. She's already rebranding everything. New logo, new direction, new everything. Classic Emerson. Juliana's laugh was bitter. You know what she told me when she cut me loose? Darling, business is like surgery. Sometimes you have to cut away the dead weight to save the patient. She told me business was war. Maybe it's both. Juliana straightened. I'll make the calls. Every sponsor she stole, every contact she burned, they'll all hear about this festival. The bell above the door chimed as Joseph rushed in, waving a newspaper. You need to see this. The headline made my stomach drop. Stellar Events announces major expansion, plans to acquire regional event companies. She's coming for the small markets, I whispered. She's going to crush every independent event planner from here to Chicago. Not if we stop her first. Joseph spread out his own documents. I've been going through the property records Elijah sent. Your mother's shell companies have been buying up venues all over the region. Small theaters, conference centers, historic buildings. Creating a monopoly, Juliana nodded. Control the venues. Control the industry. My phone buzzed with a text from Taya. Local Business Association meeting in 10 minutes. They're talking about selling the community center to a major development group. Get here now. She's already here, I said, showing them the message. She's making her move on Seabrook. We raced to the community center, arriving just as the meeting was starting. The room was packed with familiar faces, shop owners, restaurateurs, people I'd known my whole life. The offer is quite generous, the association president was saying. The development group assures us they'll maintain the building's historic character while modernizing the facilities and pricing out local events, I called out, stepping forward. Every head turned. That generous offer comes with strings. Trust me, I know exactly how this plays out. Sylvia? The president blinked. This is a closed meeting. I'm a local business owner now. I gestured to Joseph. Or I will be once Joseph and I finalize our partnership for the summer festival. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Joseph stepped up beside me. Before anyone votes on selling, you should know what happened in other towns that accepted similar offers. Show them, Sylvia. I projected Juliana's research onto the wall, graphs showing skyrocketing venue rental costs, statistics on failed local businesses, testimonials from other communities. This isn't development, I declared. It's corporate colonization, and it's being orchestrated by someone who sees your community center as just another piece on her chessboard. Your mother, someone in the crowd said quietly. Yes, and if you sell to her shell company, the summer festival will be the last affordable community event ever held in this building. The room erupted in discussion. I felt Juliana touch my arm. Nice speech, but your mother won't take this lying down. I'm counting on it. I watched the association members huddle together, voting ballots in hand. The more she fights, the more attention she draws, and attention is exactly what we need. My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. Bold move, darling, but remember who taught you to play chess. See you at the festival. Mom. I showed it to Juliana and Joseph. She took the bait. The trap is set, Juliana agreed. But Sylvia, are you ready for what happens when it springs? Looking around the community center, at the faces of people who'd known me since childhood, I felt a certainty I hadn't experienced since before my mother's betrayal. Ready? I smiled grimly. I've been preparing for this my whole life. She made sure of that. 3 weeks before the festival, chaos erupted in Taya's apartment-turned-command center. Phones rang constantly, papers covered every surface, and my laptop pinged with endless email notifications. The celebrity chef just doubled his appearance fee, Joseph announced, hanging up his phone. Says he got a better offer from another event. Let me guess, I said, not looking up from my spreadsheet. Stellar Events? Bingo, your mother's trying to poach our headliners. Taya burst through the door, looking frazzled. The printing company just canceled our order for promotional materials, said there was a computer glitch with our deposit. She's getting sloppy, Juliana remarked, walking in behind Taya. These are amateur tactics. No, I corrected. She's getting desperate. Elijah's investigation must be making her nervous. I pulled up my contacts list. I've got a backup printer in Portland who owes me a favor. Taya, call that food truck guy you dated. His brother's a chef, right? The one who trained in Paris? Yeah, but get him. He's better than the celebrity chef anyway, and he's local. Joseph, how's the venue security? Tight. I've changed all the access codes and installed new cameras. If anyone tries anything, my phone rang, displaying my mother's number. The room fell silent. Put it on speaker, Juliana whispered. I nodded and answered. Hello, Mother. Darling. Her voice dripped honey-coated venom. I've been hearing interesting things about your little festival. Have you? I thought you didn't concern yourself with provincial events. Don't be cute, Sylvia. What are you trying to prove? That you taught me well. I kept my voice steady. Isn't that what you wanted? What I want, she hissed, is for you to stop this ridiculous revenge plot. You're embarrassing yourself. Really? Because our ticket sales suggest otherwise. We're trending on local social media, and 3 major networks are covering the event. Silence crackled over the line. When she spoke again, her tone had changed. We could work together, you know. Come back to Chicago. I'll give you a division of your own. Like you gave Juliana. Another pause. I see. You've been making friends. No, Mother. I've been making allies. Something you never understood the difference between. Last chance, Sylvia. Cancel the festival or what? You'll destroy me? Take everything? Too late. I glanced at my friends, drawing strength from their presence. See you at the festival, Mother. Don't forget to bring your checkbook. We're raising money for small business protection funds. I hung up before she could respond. The room remained quiet for a moment before Taya broke the tension. Okay, that was badass. And dangerous, Elijah said, appearing in the doorway. She'll retaliate. Already has. I showed him my laptop screen. 3 vendors canceled in the last hour, but look at this. I pulled up another email, this one from a major business journal. They want to do a feature story on the festival. Small town revival, how local events are fighting corporate takeover. Perfect timing, Elijah smiled, because I just got the final piece we needed. He placed a USB drive on the table, your father's original trust documents, complete with your mother's forged signatures. The forensics report came back positive. My hands shook as I reached for the drive. This proves she stole my inheritance and committed fraud. The SEC is very interested in her activities over the past 5 years. Joseph's phone buzzed. His face darkened as he read the message. Speaking of activities, your mother just bought the old marina through one of her shell companies. She's planning something big. The marina? Taya frowned. But that's where we're setting up the main stage for the festival. She can't stop the festival, I said firmly. The contract with the city is ironclad, but she's sending a message. She's not just coming for the event, she's coming for the whole town. Juliana started pacing, her event planner mind working overtime. We need to accelerate the plan, move up the timeline. No, Elijah cautioned. The SEC needs more time to build their case. We don't have more time, I argued, pulling up the marina purchase details. Look at the closing date, 3 days before the festival. She's going to try to shut us down at the last minute, create maximum chaos. Then we give her chaos, Taya suggested, just on our terms. A plan started forming in my mind. Joseph, how quickly can you get the local business association together? Tonight, if needed. Why? I smiled, feeling that familiar rush of adrenaline that came with orchestrating a perfect event. Because we're going to give my mother exactly what she wants, a very public showdown. But this time, I'm choosing the battlefield. The festival? Juliana asked. The festival, I confirmed. Mom always said timing is everything in business. Well, she's about to learn that timing can be a weapon, too. Elijah nodded slowly. I'll make some calls. Get ready, everyone. The next 48 hours are going to be intense. They already are, I said. watching another vendor cancellation pop up on my screen. But that's okay. Sometimes you have to break things to build them back better. The morning of the festival dawned bright and clear, with a breeze that carried the promise of summer. I stood at the marina, watching food trucks line up and vendors set up their stalls. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. "She's here," Taya announced, jogging up to me. "Your mother just checked into the Harbor Hotel, and she's not alone." "Let me guess, lawyers?" "And the press, lots of press." I smiled grimly. "Good, that's exactly what we want." My phone buzzed with a message from Elijah. "SEC agents in position. Remember, keep her talking." The festival grounds transformed as the morning progressed. Local artists hung their work along the boardwalk. The smell of gourmet food filled the air, and crowds began pouring in. Every few minutes, someone would stop me to say how amazing everything looked, how this was exactly what the town needed. "Sylvia," Joseph's voice cut through the crowd. "Channel 7 wants an interview. They're setting up by the main stage." "Perfect timing." I checked my watch. "Mom should be here any minute." As if on cue, a sleek black car pulled up. My mother stepped out, wearing her signature power suit and those pearls. Two men in suits flanked her, carrying briefcases. "Darling," she called out, loud enough for nearby reporters to hear. What a charming little event. Though I'm afraid there's been a terrible misunderstanding about the venue. "No misunderstanding, Mother." I gestured to the crowds. "The festival has all necessary permits, and look, it's a huge success." "A success built on borrowed time." She smiled tightly. "I own this marina now, and I'm afraid I'll have to ask everyone to leave immediately." Cameras started rolling. Phones came out. This was exactly what we'd planned for. "Actually," I said clearly, "you don't own the marina. Not legally, anyway." Her smile faltered. "What are you talking about?" "The shell company you used to purchase this property? It's under investigation by the SEC, along with several other companies you've used for similar acquisitions." One of her lawyers whispered something in her ear. Her face paled slightly. "This is absurd," she snapped. "You're causing a scene." "No, Mother, I'm exposing one, just like you exposed my incompetence when you stole my company." I stepped closer. "Or should we talk about Dad's trust, the one you forged my signature on?" The crowd had grown silent, watching our confrontation like a tennis match. Reporters scribbled frantically. "You ungrateful little—" She caught herself, aware of the audience. "Everything I did was to protect you." "Was it? Or was it to protect your empire?" I nodded to Juliana, who emerged from the crowd with a tablet. "Show them." Juliana connected the tablet to the main stage's giant screens. Financial records, forged documents, and damning emails filled the display. "Ladies and gentlemen," Juliana announced, "let me show you how Emerson Whitfield really builds her business empire." My mother's face contorted with rage. "Stop this immediately." "Or what?" I challenged. "You'll destroy me? Take everything?" "You already tried that, but you forgot something important, Mother. You taught me too well." "Ms. Whitfield?" A man in a dark suit approached, flanked by others. "I'm with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We need you to come with us." The crowd erupted in murmurs. Phones recorded everything. My mother's lawyers huddled around her, speaking urgently. "This isn't over," she hissed at me. "Actually, it is." I held up my phone, showing her the breaking news alert. "Stellar Events CEO under investigation. Fraud and corporate misconduct alleged." As the SEC agents led her away, the festival continued around us. Music played, people danced, life went on. Taya appeared at my side, squeezing my hand. "You okay?" "I think so." I watched my mother's car disappear. "It doesn't feel real yet." "Ms. Whitfield," a reporter approached, "would you comment on your mother's arrest and the future of Stellar Events?" I thought about all the lessons my mother had taught me about handling the press. Instead, I chose honesty. This festival isn't about stellar events or corporate takeovers, I said. It's about community, about remembering that success doesn't have to come at someone else's expense. My mother never understood that, but I do, and that's why I'm announcing the creation of the Seabrook Small Business Fund, using all proceeds from today's event. The crowd cheered. Joseph appeared with champagne, passing glasses around to our core team. To Sylvia, he toasted, who proved that the best revenge isn't just success, it's success with integrity. As the sun set over the marina, casting golden light across the festival, I finally felt the weight lift from my shoulders. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Elijah. Board of Directors called an emergency meeting. They want you to take over Stellar Events. Your father's shares are being transferred to your name. It's over. I looked around at the joyful crowds, the local vendors, my loyal friends. No, I said softly, it's just beginning. The courthouse steps felt colder than they should have for a summer morning. I sat there, coffee growing cold in my hands, waiting for Elijah to emerge with news from my mother's bail hearing. You didn't have to come, Taya said, settling beside me. The lawyers could have handled this. I needed to see it for myself. I watched reporters gathering at the bottom of the steps. 3 weeks since the festival, and they're still circling like vultures. The heavy doors creaked open. My mother emerged, flanked by her legal team. She looked smaller somehow, her designer suit slightly wrinkled, her makeup not quite perfect. Our eyes met across the distance. Sylvia. She moved toward me, ignoring her lawyer's attempts to stop her. We need to talk. I think we're past that point, Mother. They're trying to put me in prison. Her voice cracked slightly. Your own mother, is that what you wanted? What I wanted? I stood up, anger burning through my practiced calm. I wanted a mother who supported me, not one who saw me as competition. I wanted to make you proud, not prove myself worthy of basic respect. Everything I did was for yourself. I cut her off. The SEC found everything, Mom. The offshore accounts, the insider trading, the forged documents, even Dad's real will. She flinched at that. Your father was weak. He would have let the business stagnate, content with small successes. No, he understood something you never did. Success isn't just about numbers. It's about legacy. Elijah emerged from the courthouse, carrying a thick folder. Bail's been set at $5 million, but there's something else. He handed me a document. Your mother's board of directors just voted. They're formally requesting you take control of Stellar Events. My mother's face went white. They can't do that. I built that company. No, I corrected, scanning the document. You stole that company, multiple companies actually, and now they're all being investigated. Sylvia, please. She reached for my hand. For a moment, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Help me fix this. We could run it together, the way I always planned. Always planned? I laughed bitterly. You planned to break me, control me, mold me into your image. Well, congratulations, Mother. You succeeded in teaching me everything I needed to know about power and betrayal. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing. My mother's lawyers moved to shield her, but she pushed them away. You'll regret this, she hissed. You think running a company is easy? You think you can do better than me? I already am. I pulled out my phone, showing her the latest news. Stellar Events stock is up 15% since your arrest. The market likes the idea of ethical leadership. Taya touched my arm. We should go. The press conference starts in an hour. My mother's eyes narrowed. Press conference? I'm announcing the merger of Stellar Events with several smaller planning companies, including Juliana's. We're creating a network of independent event planners, sharing resources while maintaining local control. You're dismantling everything I built. No, I'm building something better, something that helps people instead of crushing them. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Mom, I'm keeping the pearl necklace you gave me. Consider it a reminder of everything you taught me about karma. As we walked away, her voice carried across the courthouse steps. I made you who you are. No, I called back without turning. You showed me who I never want to be. In the car, Taya finally spoke. Are you okay? Not really. I watched the courthouse disappear in the rearview mirror. But I will be. My phone buzzed with a message from Joseph. Venue's ready for the press conference. You should see what Juliana did with the place. Another text followed, this one from an unknown number. Ms. Whitfield, this is Amanda from the DA's office. We need to discuss your testimony for the upcoming trial. I closed the messages without responding. There would be time for that later. Right now, I had a company to rebuild and a legacy to create. You know what the hardest part is? I said to Taya as we drove through familiar streets. Part of me still loves her. Part of me still wants her approval. That's because you're human, Sylvia. It's what makes you different from her. We pulled up to the venue, the same community center we'd saved from my mother's takeover. Inside, Juliana had transformed the space into something elegant yet welcoming. Local business owners mingled with corporate executives. Reporters set up their equipment, and in the corner, Joseph was hanging a new sign. Stellar Network, Community First, Success Second. Ready? Taya squeezed my hand. I touched the pearl necklace at my throat, not as a reminder of my mother's lessons, but of my own strength. Ready to write a new story. The cameras turned toward me as I approached the podium, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly free of my mother's shadow. It was time to show the world what success really looks like when built on integrity instead of fear. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee and sea salt as I unlocked the door to our new offices. The renovated marina building that had once been the battlefield of my mother's last power play. Now it housed the headquarters of Stellar Network, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor where everything had changed. Morning, boss, Taya called from her desk, which was covered in event proposals. The Tokyo partnership papers just came in, and Joseph is waiting in your office with the quarterly reports. I smiled at the boss comment. Some things never changed, even if everything else had. Inside my office, Joseph was arranging papers with his usual precision. Please tell me those numbers are as good as last month's, I said, setting down my coffee. Better, he grinned, handing me the report. The Independent Planner Network has grown to 37 cities. Juliana's London office opens next week, and, he paused dramatically, the community center's youth business program just got full funding. Dad would have loved that, I said softly, touching the framed photo on my desk. My father and me at my first school business fair, using success to help others succeed. A knock at the door interrupted us. Elijah entered, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him during the trial. The sentencing hearing is tomorrow, he announced without preamble. They want you to make a statement. My stomach tightened. What's the prosecution asking for? 8 to 10 years, plus restitution. He sat down heavily. Your mother's lawyers are pushing for house arrest, citing her contributions to the business community. And they want me to help decide her fate. I walked to the window, watching boats bob in the harbor. Perfect timing, as always. You don't have to? Yes, I do. I turned back to face them. But first, we have something more important to handle. Right on cue, Juliana burst in, tablet in hand. The first graduates of our small business mentorship program are here. 25 new entrepreneurs, ready to pitch their ideas. We headed to the conference room where nervous but excited faces greeted us. young people clutching business plans, older folks with dreams of second careers, all of them ready to build something meaningful. "Welcome to Stellar Network," I began, looking at each face. "You're here because you have vision, drive, and integrity. 3 months ago, you joined our program with ideas. Today, you'll leave with the tools to make those ideas reality." One by one, they presented their plans: a sustainable catering company, an accessible event space, a tech platform connecting local vendors. Each presentation reminded me why we'd created this program. Halfway through, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother's lawyer. "Last chance to support leniency. Family should stick together." I typed back, "Family is about lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. See you at sentencing." The pitches continued, each one strengthening my resolve about tomorrow's hearing. When the last presenter finished, we handed out the grant certificates. Seed money for each new business. No strings attached. "This is what real power looks like," I told the group. "Not controlling others, but empowering them." Later, as we celebrated with champagne in my office, Taya asked the question they'd all been avoiding. "What are you going to say tomorrow?" "The truth." I picked up my father's photo. That actions have consequences. That success built on betrayal isn't success at all. And that true legacy isn't about what you take, but what you give back. "Your mother won't see it that way," Joseph warned. "No, she won't. But maybe someone else will." I showed them an email I'd received that morning from a young event planner thanking us for stopping predatory business practices in her city. "Maybe someone else will choose a different path because of this." Elijah raised his glass. "To choosing different paths. And to walking them together," Taya added. The sun was setting over the harbor as we finished our celebration. I stayed late, reviewing the day's pitches and finalizing tomorrow's statement. A text from an unknown number lit up my phone. "Mom asked me to beg for mercy. I won't. You taught me better than that. Your cousin Rachel." I smiled, remembering all the family gatherings where Rachel had watched silently as my mother orchestrated her power plays. Now she was finding her voice too. Standing at the window, I touched the pearl necklace, no longer a symbol of my mother's lessons, but of my own. The lights of small businesses dotted the shoreline, each one a story of dreams being built the right way. Tomorrow, I would face my mother one last time. But tonight, surrounded by the evidence of what we'd built from the ashes of her empire, I felt only peace. She had taught me about power, but I had learned about strength. She had shown me how to take, but I had discovered how to give. And in the end, that made all the difference.
I apologize for asking, but could you refrain from coming to the wedding tomorrow? I sought clarification as I didn't understand the request. What do you mean exactly? Well, I think Thomas would prefer if his sister, who works at a supermarket, didn't come. I finally experienced the feeling of being looked down upon. It's supposedly for Thomas's sake, and when they mentioned it was for my brother, I couldn't say anything more. My name is Sarah. In 11th grade, my parents passed away in a car accident, leaving my brother Thomas and me alone. Initially, I couldn't comprehend the situation, and our teachers took care of the funeral arrangements. We didn't have reliable relatives, so I watched over Thomas, holding his hand tightly. After the funeral, when it was just Thomas and me in the house, I finally understood. I cried until I fell asleep from exhaustion. When I woke up, I felt considerably calmer, as if I had used up a lifetime's worth of tears. With a clear mind, I thought about how to go on living and protecting Thomas, which mattered the most. I decided not to go to college and started working instead. Despite not having a high school diploma, a classmate's parent who ran a supermarket offered me a job. "Would you like to work here? The pay isn't great, but everyone is really nice." While others enjoyed high school life in their new uniforms, I was envious. But to make ends meet, I had to work. Thankfully, Thomas understood the situation. When he came home from school, He would help with dinner and cleaning. Being the sweet guy that Thomas is, I wanted him to continue doing what he loved, playing soccer. Thomas considered quitting due to travel costs for matches, but the coach and I convinced him to stay. Maybe it's just my perception, but I believe Thomas has real talent for soccer. On the days when there were soccer games, I would take a day off work or get a break just to cheer for Thomas. At first, other parents were surprised to see a sister, not a parent, showing up for Thomas. However, as Thomas excelled in soccer and my cheers grew louder, the odd looks disappeared. Once Thomas hit high school, scouts from colleges and even the pro league started showing up to see him. This eventually helped him secure a college scholarship for athletics. When it came time for college, Thomas said, "I'm going to work. I can't keep depending on you, sis." But I shook my head. "I want you to keep chasing your dreams, Thomas. I want to live the youth I couldn't have through you." Thomas frowned a bit at my words. "I'll definitely go pro and take care of you, sis." "Thank you, but you don't have to worry about me. My only dream is for you to become a pro soccer player." I smiled warmly to reassure Thomas. "Don't worry about me. I'll be fine." "Sure, sis. You're more hardworking than me." But to me, Thomas was the true hard worker. As promised, Thomas went pro after honing his skills in college. I kept working at the supermarket, eventually moving to part-time. As time grew short, I had run out of time to pursue my dreams, so I took up a part-time job. Believe it or not, 18 years had nearly passed since I started working at the supermarket. One evening during my break, I received a text from Thomas on my cell phone. The text said, "There's someone I want you to meet." I stood up in excitement, forgetting I was in the supermarket break room. I was so happy Thomas had found someone special that I even cried while telling my coworkers and manager. Thomas was a very good kid who rarely made demands. He lost all his rebellious tendencies after our parents passed away. He even considered quitting soccer, which he loved, just to support me. And now, I get to meet someone special to Thomas. Could I be happier? The text had the date, time, and the name of a restaurant at a nearby hotel. When I told my CO workers, they said, "You have to dress stylishly." I always paid attention to my dressing, but I didn't own anything fancy. After my part-time shift, my coworkers dragged me to the shopping district, and I found myself trying on various outfits at boutiques I'd usually never enter. Finally, I settled on a classy but simple dress. We then headed to a major mall where I bought branded makeup and received a makeup tutorial. Finally, I felt a sense of liberation. Though shopping after work drained me more than my part-time job, the fatigue was not unwelcome. I had been counting down the days on my calendar, eagerly awaiting this day. A few days later, I sat in the hotel lobby where we agreed to meet, wearing a dress I had bought with a coworker. I'm not great at makeup, but I think I did it right, just as I was taught. Feeling nervous, I waited for the two of them. Then suddenly, I heard someone call from behind me. "Sis!" Turning around slowly, I saw Thomas in a suit and a stunning woman with long hair next to him. "Sis, you look amazing. I went all out on being stylish." Thomas said he wanted to introduce me to someone special. As I said this and laughed, Thomas seemed pleased. "Let me introduce you. This is my fiancée, Anna. Nice to meet you. I'm Anna, your future sister-in-law." Receiving such a courteous greeting from an incredibly beautiful woman, I found myself getting even more nervous. Somehow managing to say, "I'm Thomas's sister, Sarah," we decided to move to a restaurant. Once we were seated, we chatted about various things. Anna comes from a well-known family around here, and her father is apparently quite wealthy. "Thomas has told me about you. After your parents passed away, you've been like a parent to him. Parent-like. I wouldn't say don't be modest. You gave up high school for me and went to work." "Wait, you didn't finish high school?" "Yeah, I started working right after middle school at a supermarket. It's been 18 years now." Just then, something felt off. Though Anna was nodding and making cute faces, it seemed like she was looking down on me from behind her eyes. I thought it was my imagination. But then I saw her sneer when Thomas wasn't looking. "Your dress suits you well," she complimented my dress. But the way she scanned me from head to toe and snickered under her breath confirmed it. She definitely looked down on me. "Next year we're planning to get married," Thomas said, looking a bit embarrassed. To be honest, I wasn't thrilled, but if this was Thomas's choice, I had to be happy for him. All I could do was offer my biggest smile and say, "Congratulations." Our meetup ended, and though I had some reservations, if they were happy, who was I to say anything? I let it go. Days flew by, and before I knew it, Thomas's wedding day was tomorrow. As I was getting my outfit and other necessities ready, a call came in from Anna on my cell. I returned her call immediately, wondering what could be wrong. "I'm busy too. Could you get to the point?" I never expected to be greeted like that right off the bat. I should have left on time, and I know it's my fault, so I genuinely say I'm sorry. On the other end of the phone, Anna lets out a sigh-like sound. Then she throws a shocking statement my way. "Could you, sister-in-law, please not come to the wedding tomorrow?" What? I didn't understand her meaning, so I questioned Anna once more. "What are you trying to say?" She replied, "I mean exactly what I said. I don't think even Thomas would want his sister, who works at a grocery store, to attend." Her condescending tone made me realize what it's like to be belittled. She didn't even try to conceal her mockery. But no matter what, I can't miss my only brother's wedding. "Anna, that's not going to happen. I'm the bride, so if I say it's possible, then it is. Please don't make me repeat it. It's also for Thomas's sake." When she emphasized Thomas' sake, I couldn't argue anymore. The wedding will have guests like the coach and players of Thomas's team. Also, there will be people from the major corporations Anna's family does business with. People you typically call elites. I can't deny that I've wondered if my presence, a high school dropout, would ruin the atmosphere. Thomas might say, "Don't worry about it," but I'm sure others won't feel the same way. Maybe it would be better to follow Anna's suggestion and not attend. "Fine, I won't come, but can I at least send a congratulatory message, even though it might be considered rude over the phone? If I can't say it in person, then what?" "Never mind then," Anna curtly says, hanging up the phone. Stunned, I hold my disconnected phone. I wish I could have seen Thomas happy with my own eyes. I push the packed bag into the corner of the room and crawl into bed. I'll just sleep through today. I don't feel like doing anything, and if I let my guard down, I might start crying. I forcefully close my eyes, but I couldn't sleep until morning. The next morning, I check my phone and notice several missed calls from Thomas. No surprise there. The whole family was supposed to head to the wedding venue early in the morning. Just then, another call from Thomas comes in. I answer the phone. "Hello, sis. Where are you?" "I'm coming to get you, V. I can't make it today." I can sense the urgency on the other end. "Why?" Thomas asks with a sad voice. I'm torn about telling the truth. Before I can ask if Anna said something, he says, "Never mind. Just get here now. We'll talk later." And he hangs up. Even though I had initially decided not to go, I hurriedly get ready and leave the house, concerned about Thomas and Anna. When I arrive at the venue, I can hear shouting even before I enter the waiting room. Guided by the venue staff, I enter to find Thomas, Anna, and her parents in a heated argument. Around them, relatives who are supposed to attend are confused. "What do you mean not inviting sis to the wedding? I can't invite a sister-in-law who works at a grocery store." "It's embarrassing," Anna asserts, with both her parents standing next to her, but not in agreement. It's disheartening, but they seem to be on the same page. Seeing their reaction, Thomas' anger reaches a boiling point. "What do you mean I should be embarrassed? Sis has been working hard her entire life to raise me," Thomas protests. Anna snorts at his words, stating, "Because of your sis, I might never get married, you know? I should be more important than her, right?" "So it is," Anna's parents chime in, saying, "Absolutely." Meanwhile, Thomas looks like he's on the verge of exploding. "Thomas, Anna, let's calm down a bit," I hastily step in. But Anna suddenly realizes I'm at the venue and shouts, "Why are you here? People like you who work at supermarkets weren't invited. Leave now." Why does she have to say things like this? I didn't want to cry in front of Anna, but tears welled up. Just then, a voice rings out from a gap in the crowd of relatives who had been watching from afar. "Hold on a minute, I can't ignore that low-level comment." The voice's owner makes his way through the crowd and stands in front of us. It's the coach. He came early to attend the ceremony, and upon hearing the commotion, decided to step in. "Judging people by their profession isn't right," he says. Enough with the lectures, please. Anna gives the coach a pained look. Even she can't keep up her bravado in front of the coach. Well, that may be. The coach gives a wry smile and takes out a book from his bag. Realizing what the book is, all my sadness flies away, replaced by a surge of embarrassment. You sure she's low level even by your standards? The coach asks. That's a best-selling book. What does it have to do with this? The person who wrote this bestseller is none other than Thomas's sister, Sarah. Anna and her parents are left speechless. The book the coach is holding is a novel I published under the pseudonym Annie. The story traces back to before Thomas became a pro soccer player. When life began to stabilize, I took up reading as a hobby, mainly because it was an affordable pastime. I found joy in reading books at the library near the supermarket, a place I frequented. That library had a computer corner open to the public. In the realm of writing, an extension of my love for books, I ventured into authorship on a whim. Entering a contest resulted in an unexpected victory, forging a connection with a publishing house. Now, I stand as a recognized author, penning several best-selling novels and frequently featured in the media. This story has never crossed my lips before. After a moment of silence, Anna starts to speak, seemingly unable to believe the unfolding events. Cutting her off, Thomas interjects, I didn't say it before, but it's true, glaring at Anna as she speaks. Something about Thomas's reaction must have convinced her it's not a lie. Anna turns to look at me, her expression transitioning from devilish to as radiant as a flower. If you're such an amazing person, that's a different story. Please join the ceremony. Don't mess with me. I'm not marrying you. Thomas's words resonate. Anna looks ready to explode, and the coach steps in, holding her back. There's no way we can just go back to normal after you've treated my precious sister like this, the coach asserts. Thomas deeply apologizes in front of Anna's parents and the relatives who were planning to attend the wedding. Anna's parents also raise their voices, expressing disbelief. However, the relatives standing behind them hold them back. Amid the drama, it is eventually decided that Anna's side of the attendees should leave. Anna keeps shouting, "You have to marry me," until the end, back in the dressing room. It's just Thomas and me now. Mary, looking completely drained, sits down on the sofa. Are you sure it's okay to call off the wedding? I can't help but ask, even if it's reopening old wounds. Thomas lets out a dry laugh. Being a soccer player means you have a limited time in the spotlight. I don't think a marriage with Anna, who is so obsessed with her career, would last long, Thomas explains. His perspective makes sense, and I can easily picture how Anna, who ridiculed me so much for working at a supermarket, would treat Thomas after he quit soccer. Why didn't you tell her that I'm a writer? I throw another question at Thomas. Thomas hadn't disclosed to Anna that I'm a writer, and it felt like there was some meaning behind this. I just didn't think it was necessary. Thomas smiles, but I can't help but think that maybe he had noticed something about Anna's true nature. Several discussions took place between both families, and the engagement was officially called off. Anna and her parents resisted until the end, but it seems the relatives managed to hold them back. Even after the marriage fell through, Thomas continues to thrive in soccer. On the other hand, it seems like Anna's family faced a tough time after her outburst in the waiting room got sold to the media. As for me, I'm considering turning this experience into a novel while continuing my writing and supermarket job. I plan to keep teaming up with Thomas, just like we always have. It's been a while. How have you been? At my dad's funeral, both my estranged mom and my husband showed up. Your audacity to appear here after what you've done is quite something. Surprisingly, my mom didn't react to my sarcastic comment. However, I couldn't help but laugh at what she said. Apparently, she attended not out of grief for my husband, but rather for the inheritance. Much to her disappointment, I informed her that there's no inheritance for her. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm Julie, a 28-year-old office worker. I've been married to my husband Jose for 1 year. Our relationship started when we were both handling the same client at work. Despite my initial hesitation due to the age difference, he being 6 years younger than me, Jose confessed his feelings, declaring that age was irrelevant, and we officially began dating. His sincerity touched me, and I fell for him. Our relationship progressed smoothly, leading to his proposal. When we visited his parents, they welcomed me warmly. They mirrored his cheerful and positive demeanor, and I instantly liked them. Introducing Jose to my family, my parents, although noting his youth, found him polite and pleasant. Jose reciprocated the sentiment, praising my parents' kindness. "They're wonderful," Jose commented positively about my parents, and so we got married without any issues. After our marriage, we both continued working while sharing household chores. "Julie, your cooking is truly delicious," he complimented. "Really? That makes me happy," I replied. "Did your mother teach you this?" he asked. "No, I learned it myself. My mom isn't much of a cook. I guess she was particular about things like salads and oil, though." "Oh, really? So she's a health guru, huh?" "Well, she used to be a model." "What? Really? Did I not mention that?" "When she was in high school until she was about 19, she was a teen model. When she was 19, she got pregnant and married my dad. She quit modeling for a while, but after I started elementary school, she worked as a model for about 10 years. Whoa, I didn't know that. I thought she was very beautiful, but it makes sense if she was a model. Tell her yourself next time. I'm sure she'll be thrilled." "All right, let's go to your parents' house next time." "Sounds good. Let's go on our next day off." My husband always made an effort to visit my parents, which I appreciated a lot. Thanks to him, I could see my parents regularly. In that way, my marriage was going very well. However, something terrible happened. My dad was in an accident and has been in a wheelchair since then. "Julie, can you come again today? I have a caregiver during the day, but it's tough having to take care of him all on my own at night." "I see. Okay, I'll drop by after work." I was very worried about my dad, and to be honest, I was concerned about leaving my mom, who's not very good at housework, to take care of him on her own. I told my husband that I would go to my parents' house after work to help take care of Dad. To my surprise, he offered to pick me up and accompany me to my parents' house. "Thank you, Jose. You're a lifesaver." "Don't mention it. Your parents are in trouble, so we have to help." At that moment, I believed my husband to be an angel sent from God. "Ah, Julie, I'm glad you're here, and thank you so much for coming. Jose, I'm sorry to make it a hassle for you." "No problem at all. Please don't worry about it." "Where's Dad?" "He's sleeping in his room right now, but I think he'll want to use the bathroom soon." "All right, I'll go check on him. Thank you." "Is there anything I can help you with?" "Oh, there are some heavy things I'd like you to carry. Ever since my husband started to use his wheelchair, there's no one here to carry any heavy things, you see." "Oh, I see. That makes sense. Of course, leave it to me." My husband seemed happy to take on my mother's request. I was glad he came along. "Dad, you're awake." "Thanks for coming, Julie. I heard your voices and woke up." "I see. Do you need to use the restroom? I can help you get there." "Oh, I think I'll take you up on that. I'm truly sorry for the trouble." "What are you talking about? I was able to go to college because of you. It's time for me to repay back the kindness, you know." "Thank you, Julie." After finishing taking care of Dad, my husband and I returned home together. When we got home, my husband made a certain proposal. "Hey, what do you think about us moving in with your parents?" "What?" "I mean, to be honest, it must be hard for your mom and dad to live on their own in their current situation." "Yeah, but are you okay with that? They aren't your parents, you know. Won't you feel stressed?" "Not at all. Your parents are really kind, so I have no problem living with them, Jose." I was really grateful for my husband's proposal. Honestly, I was thinking the same thing. My mom and dad have a 12-year age gap. My dad was a company CEO, and he met my mom at a party where wealthy people gathered. He fell in love with my beautiful mom at first sight, and that's how they started our family. They got married when my mom became pregnant. Since mom isn't good at housework, her mother and my grandmother often came to our house to cook and clean. I distinctly recall watching my grandmother cook when I was a child. My mom held a unique belief that, as long as she was beautiful, she didn't have to do anything else, so she avoided most household chores. I started living on my own when I went to university, learning to handle housework and cooking, becoming quite independent. However, my mom struggled with basic tasks and couldn't manage the household on her own. That's why I wanted to be by my dad's side and support him if possible. There's another reason why I want us to live together. What is it? Actually, I'm pregnant. Wait, really? Yeah. Seriously, I'm going to be a dad. That's right. In that case, it's even more reasonable to live at your parents' house. I guess you're right. I'll contact my mom right away. When I told my mom, she said it would be a great help and agreed to let us move in. So, my husband and I moved into my parents' house and began living together there. I decided to become a full-time housewife while caring for my dad at home, successfully preparing for the birth of our baby. If anything happened, my mom would take me to the hospital, and even though she couldn't cook, she would buy whatever I needed from the supermarket. That alone was a huge help, and it was a relief to live at home where I wouldn't be alone. My husband seemed to communicate well with my parents. He would express concern about my dad's health and engage in enjoyable conversations with my mom. Seeing this, I believed I had made the right decision when I chose to marry Jose. One day, I asked him to accompany me to the store because I heard there were more affordable ingredients at a supermarket a bit further away. I suggested taking the car for convenience, and he agreed to handle it. My husband and my mom had a fantastic relationship, resembling that of real parents and children. They often went shopping together on weekends. As my pregnancy progressed, going out became challenging, and I appreciated their initiative to handle the shopping. After giving birth to a healthy baby boy, our family celebrated the new addition joyfully. With a son, thoughts of him potentially taking over my dad's company in the future filled me with anticipation for an even more enjoyable life with my family. However, an unexpected situation arose when I decided to take my son shopping. Wanting to buy baby items, I opted to drive to a store farther away. Rather than risk miscommunication with my husband, I chose to handle it myself. I left him in charge of my dad and set out. Unfortunately, about 5 minutes into the drive, I realized I had forgotten my wallet. I hurriedly turned back home. As I was about to retrieve my wallet from upstairs, I heard a peculiar noise emanating from my mom's room. Our house had my dad's room on the first floor. He uses a wheelchair, while my husband, mom, and I occupied rooms on the second floor. Not finding my husband and mom on the first floor heightened my unease. Quietly approaching my mom's room, I heard creaking sounds and heavy breathing, instantly realizing what was happening. Instinctively, I began recording on my phone and cautiously opened the door. "What are the two of you up to?" My mom's and my husband's surprised voices resonated in the room, both of them exposed, or in simpler terms, in the midst of an intimate encounter. Hastily, they began dressing themselves. "What is this? An affair?" I confronted them, but they remained unapologetic. "Yes, it is, but well, it can't be helped," Jose admitted. "He prefers me, Julie. Sorry, but your mother is much more attractive, you know." "Excuse me?" I interjected. Apparently, my husband had a penchant for older women, and he didn't mind the age difference during our dating days. In fact, he found it more appealing. "Do you think you'll be forgiven for this?" I asked, to which they nonchalantly replied, "Whether we're forgiven or not doesn't matter. We're moving out and living together. We're getting divorced." "Then I'll prepare the divorce papers right away," I responded calmly. Despite the shocking revelation, I knew I had to remain composed for the sake of my father, who needed care, and my newborn son. "So, Mom, you're getting divorced from Dad, right? I'll bring the divorce papers for you too," I declared. To my surprise, my mom made an unexpected statement. "I'm not getting a divorce." "What? You're not divorcing Dad, but you're leaving the house?" "Hold on, there's a limit to playing around like this," I protested. "I'm not joking. I'm not leaving until I get my fair share of this house's assets, and I'm staying until your dad passes away," my mom declared. "What are you saying? You won't leave unless you get his inheritance? How disgusting are you?" I exclaimed, appalled by my mom's refusal to divorce for the sake of inheriting my dad's assets. I seethed, glaring at my mom with clenched fists. "I'm just choosing the option that benefits me more, regardless of whether it's an old man. I'll take all the money I can get and then I'll be with a young and wonderful boy." I was beyond angry. I was appalled. "Jose, I'm divorcing you no matter what," I declared. But he responded with a nonchalant, "Yeah, sure. But depending on the circumstances, I might refuse to agree to it." What conditions? I asked, bracing myself for his response. That you or your dad accept your mom's wishes to not divorce your dad, he said. Since it's you, Julie, you might take some measures, right? So since you and I are getting a divorce, I want you to keep the promise that your mom and dad remain married. You've got to be kidding. There's no way I can accept those terms, I protested. Then I won't divorce either, and I won't pay child support, he threatened. You can't do that. Well, what will you choose? I challenged. My husband and mom looked triumphant. Nevertheless, I couldn't make such a decision without considering my dad's feelings. Running down to the first floor, I found my dad awake and seemingly aware of the conversation. Dad, you don't need to worry about me. Divorce him right away. No, but then you and mom need to worry about me. That's why you should divorce that man right away, my dad urged, looking straight into my eyes. It was evident that he had some sort of plan. With that in mind, I decided to follow my dad's advice and accepted the terms my husband proposed for the divorce. My husband and my mother, laughing loudly, said, "Let us know when Dad dies, okay?" and then left. I was so angry that I felt like I was going insane, but the one who was truly suffering was my dad. "I'm sorry, Dad. Jose did something unforgivable," I apologized. "Don't worry about it. They'll probably see hell soon enough," my dad assured me. I struggled to comprehend my dad's intentions, but once he explained his plan, clarity washed over me. This strategy could undoubtedly make my mom and Jose experience a taste of their own hell. From that point on, I resolved to live my life without dwelling on those two. In the daylight hours, I hired a helper and resumed working. My son thrived, and I became more adept at caring for my dad, who reveled in spending time with his grandchild. I envisioned my son growing up to embody the qualities of my dad. 1 year slipped away in the blink of an eye. Not long ago, my dad's health took a turn for the worse, and he had to be hospitalized. Unfortunately, his health never rebounded, and he passed away. I had mentally prepared for this moment, so I faced it with a calmness that surprised even me. Swiftly, I organized the funeral, drawing many attendees who held deep affection for my dad. However, amid the mourners, I encountered the two people I least wanted to see: my mom and my ex-husband. "What are you doing here?" I exclaimed, taken aback. "I came as promised," my mom replied casually, and my ex-husband added, "Long time no see. How have you been?" How could they show their faces at my dad's funeral after everything they had done? Frustration boiled within me. "Julie, most men and women are attracted to each other by instinct, so it can't be helped. Reason doesn't apply to those who are drawn to each other," my mom remarked, seemingly indifferent to my sarcastic comments. "Why are you at my dad's funeral? You could have spent your time alone with him," I retorted. "Well, it's my husband's funeral after all. It's only natural to attend, right? And as I mentioned earlier, I need to fulfill my promise. I came to claim my inheritance. Now tell me how much I'm getting," my mom demanded. I found myself unable to suppress a laugh at my mom's declaration. "I'm sorry, but you're not entitled to any inheritance," I stated firmly. "What? What are you talking about? She should be entitled to a portion of the estate," my ex-husband protested. "I'm sorry, but my mom and dad have already divorced," I calmly explained. "What? I didn't agree to a divorce?" my mom exclaimed. "Have you forgotten that you once handed a divorce paper to my dad? He kept it for a moment like this. After you two left, my dad submitted the divorce papers. You're no longer with my dad, which means you're not eligible for his inheritance," I clarified. As I spoke, the color drained from my mom and my ex-husband's faces. "No, you're lying. That's impossible," they insisted. "Now that you understand, could you please leave? You understand the situation, right?" I requested. Many people who respected my dad began to gather around us. They all despised the two who had betrayed and hurt my dad. Realizing the situation, immediately, my mom and ex-husband exited the funeral. According to reports, they had been living a lavish lifestyle incongruent with my ex-husband's income. It appeared they had depleted all the money my mom had saved, resorting to taking out loans. This financial crisis coincided with the news of my dad's passing. Despite their intentions to use the inheritance to settle their debts, their plans faltered, and they left with nothing. Presently, their whereabouts remain unknown, but it holds no significance to me as it is not my concern. On a different note, I began working at my dad's company several years ago and assumed the role of CEO before my dad's demise. Currently, I am safeguarding my dad's legacy as the CEO, while also nurturing my beloved son. While I hope for my son to eventually take charge of the company, I am fully prepared to support his dreams if he chooses a different path. At present, I yearn to witness the growth of my small and endearing son. Narrator's reflection. Engaging in an affair with your wife's mother is truly reprehensible, the epitome of betrayal. Even if one has a preference for older partners, such actions are unforgivable. Julie's mother, too, displays a deplorable character. Perhaps individuals of the lowest moral standing are drawn to each other. Nevertheless, there is a certain satisfaction in knowing that both of them eventually found themselves immersed in debt. Julie should continue excelling as the CEO and revel in joyous days spent with her son.
At the wedding reception, my parents-in-law were visibly drunk, oblivious to the hushed whispers around them. Unconcerned, they continued to berate me, insisting that if I wanted to join the family, I had to prove my financial capability. Well, since you're already married, you better show us you have enough money. Give us $1,000, a new bonus, and a hefty sum, they demanded, shocking me to the core. I never expected such words at a wedding reception. The blood drained from my face as I stared at them. My father intervened, snatching the microphone away. "Enough is enough. Don't you realize you're making a complete fool of yourselves?" he scolded. My name is Zoe, a 23-year-old office worker, currently in a relationship with Dylan, who's 27. We met through a friend, and after a year he proposed. Soon we would be married. Losing my mother at a young age left a profound impact, and my father, a hard worker, raised me single-handedly. I had a comfortable upbringing, shielded from many worries, yet the pain of losing my beloved mother led me to guard my emotions, fearing a repeat of such heartache. This guarded approach extended to my romantic life, and I had minimal dating experience since my school days. I even entertained the thought of remaining single for life. However, Dylan entered my life, challenging my reservations. I didn't harbor any romantic feelings for Dylan initially, despite his persistent attempts to ask me out. However, he genuinely cared about me and displayed gentlemanly qualities. Over time, I started opening up my heart, and we began dating. His continuous care brought happiness, making him irreplaceable in my life. I realized I wanted to spend my life with him, and when he proposed, we decided to get married. Dylan understood me completely, always kind and supportive, assuring me that I could count on him. His words, "I love you, Zoe, you can count on me," moved me deeply. The promise to make me happy for the rest of my life filled me with joy. Just being with him warmed my heart, inspiring me to reciprocate his care. When I informed my father about our decision to marry, he cried tears of happiness. "Wow, Zoe, you're finally getting married. I'm so happy for you," he exclaimed dramatically. It was a revelation to hear such sentiments from him, as he had always worried about me not finding a partner. Grateful for his support, I thanked him, realizing how much every father worries about his daughter. Preparations for the wedding began, and despite our busy work schedules, Dylan and I dedicated our weekends to wedding planning. My dad, having raised me single-handedly, expressed his congratulations, anticipating that he might cry even more at the actual wedding. With these heartfelt moments, Dylan and I embarked on the journey of preparing for our big day. There was no time to rest. Our schedules were filled every day with various commitments. On our supposed day off, we planned to visit Dylan's parents' house so I could meet them for the first time. Dylan had met my father right after proposing. Originally, I wanted to introduce myself to Dylan's parents right away, but their busy schedules delayed our visit. When we finally arrived at his parents' house, I felt a sudden nervousness. Dylan reassured me, saying, "Don't worry, my parents are very kind people." His mother warmly welcomed us, and as we exchanged pleasantries, I greeted her politely. However, her demeanor changed when she realized I was Dylan's fiancé. "I see, so you're Zoe," she said in a lower tone, and her smile disappeared. Her scrutinizing gaze made me feel marginalized. Leading us to the living room, her attitude toward me remained cool. Suddenly, she questioned, Zoe, I wonder how much you're worth. Stunned, I hesitated, feeling more like I was being interrogated than welcomed. Her words felt like a judgment, making me at a loss for a response. The tone from my prospective mother-in-law caught me off guard. I hadn't expected such a chilly reception. She continued, "Dylan is our treasure, our only child. If you're going to marry him, you need to be a suitable wife for Dylan. Are you worthy of it?" The unexpected question left me speechless. It felt more like an interrogation than a welcoming introduction. Unsure of how to respond, I realized that joining a family required more preparation than I had anticipated. Marrying someone who possesses an inheritance doesn't seem like a commitment I should be questioned about, especially since I won't be living with them. I don't need to feel pressured by inquiries like these. As I contemplated this, Dylan's mother, seemingly unfazed by my delayed response, took on an intimidating demeanor. "Why don't you answer promptly when I ask you a question? You're so ill-behaved," she scolded. The pressure continued as she demanded if I was ready for this commitment. Despite the intense interrogation, I managed to express my hope that Dylan and I would support each other in our marriage. Unconvinced, his mother dismissed my words as spoiled, asserting that my role was solely to support Dylan as his wife. Dylan's father intervened, attempting to calm the situation, apologizing for his wife's outburst. Despite his mother's protectiveness, he suggested that she might be nervous, speaking her truth. However, my relief was short-lived as his father expressed concerns about my single-parent upbringing. He claimed that being raised by a single parent had a negative public image, expressing hesitations about having someone from such a background as the wife of their only son. Stunned, I tried to comprehend the unexpected criticism. I couldn't let this slide. There's nothing wrong with being raised by a single parent. My father worked tirelessly to raise me, and I'm proud of him. Being raised by a single parent doesn't diminish my value. However, Dylan's parents seemed to think differently. They suggested that I might lack skills in being a good wife and doing housework due to the absence of one parent. I countered, emphasizing my efforts in housework and cooking to ease the burden on my father. Dylan unfortunately ignored my words and eventually stated that to marry him, I must promise to devote everything to God, meaning I should comply with his parents' every request. Stunned, I hesitated, struggling to comprehend the extent of these expectations. Before I could express more, Dylan's parents continued monopolizing the conversation, leaving little room for me to argue. Frustrated, I decided to confide in Dylan about my feelings. "Dylan, do your parents always talk to people like that?" I asked, surprised by his nonchalant response. "What about it?" he replied, seemingly unfazed by what his parents had said to me. "I mean, what your parents said and how they repeated it this afternoon. It just feels like it was a bit too much." I expressed my concerns. "Really?" Dylan responded, seemingly unaware of the impact of his parents' words. "Why is that my parents didn't say anything wrong? Besides, they've given us permission to get married, so don't worry about it." That's true, but I trailed off, uneasy about Dylan seeming to be on his parents' side rather than mine. Sensing my uneasiness, he hugged me. "Zoe, you don't have to worry so much. My parents are just a little too upset because their only son is getting married," Dylan reassured me. But his words left me feeling like he didn't entirely approve of me. "It's all going to be fine. Don't think so much. I'm sure they just want what's best for us. They want us to be as good a couple as they are. That's why their words are a bit harsh," he continued. "Oh, really?" I responded skeptically. Even if his parents had high expectations, I didn't believe it justified belittling me for being raised by my father. I don't think people who say that are a good couple. We are the ones getting married, and we're supposed to be the stars of the show. It's not like they disapprove of our marriage, Dylan tried to reassure me. Accepting his perspective, I decided not to dwell too much on his parents. The day of the wedding arrived, and we were surrounded by well-wishers, including friends, colleagues, and bosses. Walking down the aisle with my father, I exchanged vows and rings with Dylan, and the applause filled the air. For the first time, I realized the profound happiness of marrying Dylan. I was engrossed in conversation as we entered the reception hall. Videographers captured moments of the bride and groom, providing delightful entertainment. Reconnecting with old friends and receiving congratulations added to the joy. While I initially worried about his parents, they seemed genuinely pleased with our decision to marry. After the ceremony, we proceeded to register our marriage, becoming husband and wife. Each moment was cherished, and happiness filled the air. As the evening progressed, the bride and groom, along with our parents, lined up to greet guests. However, unease crept in when I noticed his parents were unsteady on their feet, their faces betraying the effects of excessive drinking. Despite their condition, we had to proceed with the ceremony. As the microphone was handed to us, Dylan's mother, fueled by alcohol, launched into a provocative tirade, addressing me like a professional wrestler. "Zoe, listen up. You're going to be our daughter-in-law after this wedding. As I told you before, get ready to devote yourself completely. Prepare because we're going to make you work hard." The guests exchanged whispers, with some thinking it was a joke, and laughter echoed in the room. Dylan's father took the microphone next. "Zoe, don't you feel embarrassed wearing a dress like that? It doesn't suit you at all, dear. Zoe, listen up. You're going to be our daughter-in-law after this wedding. As I told you before, get ready to devote yourself completely. Prepare because we're going to make you work hard." The guests exchanged whispers, with some thinking it was a joke, and laughter echoed in the room. Dylan's father took the microphone next. "Zoe, don't you feel embarrassed wearing a dress like that? It doesn't suit you at all, dear." I hesitated to disclose the truth to her. As expected, people began exchanging concerned glances. I implored Dylan to intervene and halt his father's outburst, but he refused, asserting that his parents were not in the wrong. It became evident that she wouldn't shield me from his parents in the future. The hall buzzed with conversation, and despite the commotion, my in-laws, inebriated, continued their verbal assault. Unfazed, they insisted that, although I was already married, I needed to prove my financial capability to join their family. Stunned by their demands, I never anticipated such remarks at a wedding reception. The blood drained from my face as I stared at them. My father stepped in, wresting the microphone from his parents. "Enough of this! Don't you realize you're making a fool of yourselves?" Despite my father's respectful intervention, his parents remained defiant. "Why are you trying to interrupt us while we're talking? Your father is no good. That's why you turned out like this," his mother retorted. My father calmly responded, "You people are even worse than I imagined. You refuse to meet with me just because I am a single father. I never thought someone like that would be working for President Anderson. Rather than Anderson being a wonderful character, a third of his employees must be good people." During the president's speech, my father-in-law's expression abruptly turned severe. He questioned how I knew the president, revealing him as our company's business partner, and more importantly, an old friend of mine. My face paled as he accused me of making fun of the president, particularly for being raised by a single mother. I scrambled to apologize and pleaded with him not to convey this to the president. My father-in-law, who had moments ago acted like a king, now found himself kneeling in embarrassment. Laughter erupted from the guests, some even capturing the scene on video. Realizing the irreparable damage, I accepted my father's suggestion to leave. Taking the microphone from Dylan, I announced the cancellation of the marriage, vowing to return the money guests had contributed. As we left, I caught a glimpse of Dylan and his parents in disarray. Soon after, his relatives approached, expressing sympathy and praising our decision to stand up against such behavior. The incident spread, and Dylan's company gained notoriety for harboring deluded parents with an inferiority complex. Dylan's pride reached such heights that he could no longer bear it, leading to his voluntary resignation. Predictably, the president of my father-in-law's company got wind of the incident, and Dylan was promptly shuffled to a less significant division and transferred to a countryside office. News of the wedding fiasco left his family in disarray, with relatives distancing themselves due to their own missteps. Meanwhile, my father approached me asking if I had any interest in running the business. "Do you mean?" I inquired. "Why don't you consider aiming to become the president of my company?" he suggested. Determined to focus on my career rather than romance, I embraced the challenge, aspiring to follow in my father's footsteps. Currently employed at my father's company, I'm diligently learning the ropes. While my in-laws made a spectacle of themselves at the wedding reception, the silver lining is that the breakup occurred before formalizing the marriage. With newfound freedom, I can pursue my goal of becoming a successful president without unnecessary concerns. I'm Anna, 29 years old, residing with my husband Edward and our 3 daughters. For the past 2 decades, I've been estranged from my family. Growing up, I always felt isolated within my seemingly close-knit family. Shy and introverted, I struggled to stand out, having only a few friends during my school years. In contrast, my older sister Naomi was outgoing and popular due to her good looks. My parents seemed to favor her, evident in instances like shopping for hair accessories, where I was asked to yield to her preferences. Despite my parents' favoritism, Naomi treated me coldly and even discouraged me from talking to her at school. The emotional distance between us grew as I got older, and upon high school graduation, I made the decision to leave home for good. While Naomi attended an expensive private college, my parents, struggling to afford her tuition, expressed indifference toward my plans. When they later asked for money, I couldn't tolerate the years of neglect. Fed up, I snapped and declared my independence. My decision led to a confrontation with my dad, who yelled at me and declared me dead to them. With only a few belongings and a small amount of savings from my part-time job, I left home, overwhelmed but resolute never to return. I successfully established a new life for myself in a different place. The company that hired me right after high school didn't offer a high salary, but the people were kind and supportive, making each day fulfilling. While working in a building that contracted with a cleaning service, I met my husband, Edward. Our initial exchanges were simple greetings, but as time passed, we engaged in small talk, leading to Edward inviting me to dinner. His warm smile and dedicated work ethic had always caught my attention, and without hesitation, I accepted his invitation. We continued to go out, and after our third dinner, Edward confessed his feelings, marking the beginning of our relationship. Our connection thrived, and on our third anniversary, we decided to tie the knot. Despite my reservations about reconnecting with my parents, I reached out to them to share the news of my upcoming wedding. The response from my dad was unexpectedly cold and indifferent. Disheartened, I hung up the phone, tears streaming down my face. Edward, noticing my distress, came over and comforted me with a gentle touch on my back. As I shared the disappointing phone call with him, he reassured me that I had him and his parents, who were thrilled to welcome me into their family. Wrapped in Edward's embrace, I realized that I was not alone anymore, and I decided to focus on the positive aspects of my life. My in-laws proved to be incredibly kind and warmer than my own family. A couple of years later, we welcomed our first daughter into the world, and our lives were filled with joy and fulfillment. Despite cutting ties with my family years ago, I embraced the support and love from my new family. I received an unexpected call from my dad, and though hesitant, I answered, thinking it might be urgent. To my surprise, he sounded unusually cheerful. I shared that I was doing well and mentioned having a daughter. However, my news about having a grandchild was casually dismissed. Despite keeping my composure, I was shocked at the lack of enthusiasm. Dad then dropped the bombshell that my sister was getting married to a successful businessman who owned several companies. Following this announcement, I received an unexpected invitation to the wedding scheduled in 2 months. I couldn't help but feel the insensitivity, especially recalling that when I got married, only Edward's family celebrated with us. I couldn't invite my own family. Yet my dad insisted I attend my sister's wedding, emphasizing the potential embarrassment if her in-laws thought I couldn't attend my own wedding. Despite my reservations, I felt somewhat obligated to go. Since our daughter was still young, I decided to attend alone, leaving her in Edward's care. With some time to spare before the meet and greet my dad mentioned, I considered spending it at the hotel cafe. However, as I walked through the lobby, I spotted a familiar figure from behind, my sister. Surprised to see me, she questioned my presence, and I congratulated her on her wedding. She, in turn, seemed puzzled, mentioning that she had explicitly asked Dad not to invite me. It became apparent that my dad had invited me merely to maintain appearances. Feeling dejected once again, I couldn't fathom why I was treated this way after making the effort to attend. I didn't receive an invitation, so I decided to leave. Leaving my daughter with my husband, I requested that he explain the situation to Dad. As I was about to exit, my sister seemed to recall my presence. "By the way, Anna, you're married too, right? What does your husband do?" When I shared that he worked in the cleaning business, she scoffed, dismissing it as a dirty job and commenting on the assumed state of our house. Unable to tolerate the insults, I lost my temper, asserting my happiness with my life and expressing a desire for no further interference from her or Dad. With a sneer, she declared we were strangers now and would remain so. Storming out of the hotel, I noticed my ruined makeup, a stark reminder of my brief 30-minute visit after a 2-hour journey. Upon returning home, my husband and daughter greeted me warmly, understanding the ordeal. My husband embraced me, emphasizing that I belonged with them. Over the next decade, I gave birth to 2 more daughters, becoming a mom of 3. Although I initially left my job after the first daughter's birth, I eventually returned to work at the same cleaning company as my husband. During a routine cleaning at the office, I conceived an idea for a cleaning tool, which gained traction within the company. Actively involved in the project, the tool, designed from a homemaker's perspective, became a huge success. The business flourished, attracting attention online and in magazines, with demand soaring beyond our expectations. We decided to establish a subsidiary for manufacturing and selling cleaning products, and surprisingly, I was chosen as the CEO of the new company. With strong support from everyone, the company grew into a $40 million business. Balancing work and household chores, my husband and daughter have been supportive, making our life busy yet fulfilling. However, a recent TV segment featuring me changed everything. The 10-minute segment on a lifestyle show showcased my background and the inception of my product, leading to a surge in inquiries and a busier schedule. One day at the office, I received a note with a callback number. Expecting another interview request, I was taken aback when I saw it was from my sister. Despite blocking her and my parents' numbers after the wedding incident, she chose this moment to reconnect, possibly inspired by my recent TV appearance. Wary but wanting to avoid disruptions at work, I reluctantly called her back. Annoyed by her casual greeting, I inquired about her intentions. She remarked on my newfound financial success and suggested that I help them out. Irritated, I questioned the need for my involvement in her husband's business, to which she retorted,
I answered the call, and he immediately brought up the past, referencing the wedding incident. Annoyed, he cut me off, accusing me of being gloomy due to dwelling on the past. I was dumbfounded by his audacity. My family now consists of my loving husband and daughters, and I asserted that he is not a part of it anymore. Despite his protests, I ended the call, thinking it was the end of the matter. However, I was wrong. To my surprise, my parents and sister showed up at my office. The receptionist was flustered, but my dad insisted on continuing our conversation. Not wanting to create a scene at work, I contacted my husband and we agreed to meet them at home. Tension filled the air as both families gathered. Taking the lead, I bluntly addressed their likely intention of asking for money. I made it clear that I had no funds to spare for them. They laughed dismissively, claiming their familial ties entitled them to a share of my success. My sister's husband even asserted that with financial help, he could run a business more successfully than me. His arrogance mirrored that of my sister and parents. I firmly stated that the only connection we share is blood, and I have no reason to help strangers who happen to be family. Before I could retort further, my husband intervened, placing his hand on my shoulder and standing beside me. He calmly but firmly asserted that I was already part of their family, and they didn't need my estranged relatives to find happiness. He challenged them, suggesting that perhaps they were the ones who needed us. In response, my sister erupted, mocking my husband's occupation as a janitor, surrounded by garbage all day. Unfazed, my husband defended the honor of janitorial work, emphasizing its role in keeping the community clean. He revealed that he is the CEO of the parent company of my business, shutting down their attempts to belittle him and reaffirming our family's strength. In surprise, my sister screamed, "What, Anna? You never mentioned!" I couldn't help but laugh at the shocked faces of my parents and sister. He wasn't the CEO when we got married. It was originally his father's company, I added. Their faces turned sour. My husband stepped in, stating, "If your husband is such a great businessman, he shouldn't need our financial help." Attempting to respond, my sister and her husband were left at a loss for words. Taking a deep breath, I asserted, "This is the last time we'll talk. We're fine being strangers. If you make a scene, I'll call the police." Despite their glares, my husband stood in front of me, staring them down. They left without another word. Later, my husband shared surprising news. His company had business dealings with my brother-in-law's company, and he decided to cut all ties. When my brother-in-law came to apologize, my husband didn't accept it. Unfortunately, my brother-in-law's company, which lost its business partners, went bankrupt, burdened with massive debt. Consequently, my sister and her husband divorced. Moreover, my dad, who had been receiving financial help from them, prematurely retired without consulting anyone. Now unable to find a job due to his age, my parents' marriage was also on the rocks. Meanwhile, my divorced sister, back at our parents' home, was barely making ends meet with a part-time factory job. On the other hand, my work is going well, and my family is happy. We're planning a long family vacation with my in-laws. Grateful for the happiness I have, I plan to cherish every day.
I've always held a deep admiration for my grandparents, probably stemming from my parents frequently being away for work during my childhood. My name is Alice, 29 years old, and I'm currently in my final month of pregnancy. Excitement about welcoming my first child is mixed with concerns, particularly regarding my husband Jacob, who is 29 years old. Lately, I've observed a change in him, a certain prickliness that has been gradually surfacing. This became more apparent during a recent visit to my grandparents' house, where Jacob, in the process of setting up their Wi-Fi, displayed frustration and seemed bothered. Initially, it struck me as unnecessary since Grandma and Grandpa don't even need Wi-Fi. Despite being a couple who occasionally visits my grandparents' house, Jacob's demeanor raised some concerns. We can't access the paid movie site that we usually use to pass the time, and Jacob consistently complains about it. Even though my grandparents paid out of their own pocket to have Wi-Fi installed for him, he finds faults even in the installation process. My grandmother and I, lacking a deep understanding of technology, were flustered by Jacob's irritation. Sorry, it's not goggles, it's Google, and not columns, it's Chrome, my grandmother corrected. But Jacob responded with a loud click of his tongue. I empathize with his frustration, but there's an indescribable feeling lingering within me. Eventually, the installation was completed, making me realize that this form of caregiving, dealing with digital issues, is a unique and challenging task, even more so than physical caregiving. Okay, there are computer classes specifically designed for the elderly, right? You could learn from someone else, just like hiring a professional for real caregiving. That's what he said, making a sarcastic comment, and mentioned that I'm unnecessarily tired. He then decided to go to the beach for his hobby of surfing. He didn't used to be this rude and short-tempered. I'm in my final month of pregnancy, and afterwards, he became even more irritable at home, choosing surfing as a way to vent his anger whenever something bothered him. In the meantime, I, being in my final month of pregnancy, am left behind, feeling helpless and bearing the brunt of his frustrations. I end up venting my own frustrations at my grandparents' house. My grandmother suggested that my husband might be feeling like the baby in my belly is taking me away from him. I love my grandparents is that they give advice based on their life experiences. It felt like an invaluable experience one day when I visited them. As evening approached and I was about to leave, my grandmother, as if suddenly remembering, said, "It must be tough doing household chores while pregnant. Take this with you." She handed me a container of mac and cheese that she had made. When I served that dish for dinner at home, complaints flew from him. "Ah, this again." Ignoring that, I rubbed my belly, experiencing more frequent kicks and severe back pain. Above all, my belly felt heavy. My grandmother had given it to me considering my condition, but it wasn't just that. "You're always out, but are you really going to Grandma and Grandpa's, huh? What is that about bringing home?" The fact that bringing home mac and cheese could be evidence enough, that's what I thought. However, just like there's prenatal depression for pregnant women, according to my grandmother, there might be something going on with him as well. The outdated dishes are seriously unbearable. It feels like the 80s era. "I'm going surfing. I'll eat some pasta or something on the way back," he said, and left again. I sat on a chair alone, letting out a sigh. Surfing on a night like this, but maybe seeing the cute baby will change something in him. I also had a faint hope, because my grandmother said, "Babies make the world go round." However, I would come to know with my own body that it was a naive hope. After giving birth at the end of that month, it was a long haul with 5 hours of labor and 1 hour in the delivery room. Fitting for a first-time mom, I think I did pretty well, but it was truly painful. However, seeing the baby's face made all the pain irrelevant. Even though very small, the baby had the form of a human down to the fingertips. I was relieved from all the hardships, hoping my eternal blues could dissipate, and his blues could vanish as well. However, he never visited the hospital to see the baby's face during my admission. Far from it, upon my return home, he questioned, "Is that really my child? Considering you often left home, claiming to visit your grandparents, I find it hard to believe." As I stood dumbfounded at the doorstep, holding the baby, he coldly stated, "Give me some of your hair. I need to get a DNA test done to confirm if it's really your child." What? Where did that come from? I've just returned home after enduring the pain of childbirth. Is it fair to pick on me like this? I felt a surge of anger like I've never experienced before. Is he accusing me of infidelity? More than being suspected by him, what irritates me is Jacob showing not even a shred of joy in front of such a cute baby. My anger surged like magma erupting from a volcano. If the joy of finding the baby adorable stems from maternal instincts, it felt like my very motherhood was being invalidated. The next day, still reeling from the awful revelation, I reached my breaking point and poured out my grievances to my grandparents who had come to check on the baby. My grandfather, perhaps aiming to support me, offered a male perspective, suggesting, "If you haven't done anything wrong, why not take the DNA test? Women can hold their heads high if they are innocent, but men sometimes can't believe without evidence. Sharing objective facts is important. Well, if this clears the suspicion, instead of holding a grudge against Jacob, ask him to make it up to you with a nice cake or something." This advice helped to calm me down a bit, so I decided to submit my hair for the DNA test, convinced that if it resolved things amicably, so be it. However, a week later, Jacob slammed a paper with the test results in front of me, exclaiming, "Hey, the test result. It seems it's not my child. What's the meaning of this?" I went to the Joseph Clinic for the test, and as I stared at the paper in shock, it indeed confirmed the absence of any genetic match with him. "This is the evidence of adultery. You understand, right?" he announced with a triumphant face. I truly have no memory of it. I visited my grandparents' house with the paper in hand and cried in their embrace. After a brief silence, my grandfather spoke gently. "Alice, you used to come to our house when you were in trouble, didn't you? It's okay. Leave the rest to me." He gently patted my shoulder with his wrinkled but big hand and then stroked the baby's head. The yet-to-close fontanelle felt soft. Since my childhood, my grandfather always reassured me, saying, "It's okay," and he did so today as well. I wept profusely, expressing my gratitude. "Thank you, Grandpa." A few days later, my grandfather summoned Jacob to assemble at their place for a discussion heading towards divorce over the weekend. "So it's finally happening. A discussion heading towards divorce," he spoke arrogantly, looking down at me. Deliberately, he submerged the DNA test results he had shown me earlier into a bath. Although my parents were informed about the discussion, the decision was made that only the four of us, my grandparents, Jacob and I, would gather, as my grandfather said, "For now, leave it to me." As everyone gathered in the living room of my grandparents' house, he initiated the conversation. "This is undeniable proof." Distributing copies of the DNA test results to everyone, it indeed stated that there was no blood relation with him. As everyone scrutinized the paper, my grandfather verified, "This is from Joseph's Clinic, as written here." "Right, yes. Can't you see? It's mentioned here," Jacob asserted with confidence. Like a detective presenting gathered evidence, he declared, "There's no escape, you know. As long as I have this evidence, I won't let you say you don't remember anything." He leaned back with a smirk, as if cornering a suspect. In that moment, my grandfather chuckled, stating, "This is a genuine document. Ha ha." Then he placed some similar-looking hair on top of a copy of the appraisal result that Jacob had prepared, emphasizing, "This is a genuine document from Joseph's hospital, where the DNA test results are recorded." He asked the grandfather who conducted the appraisal, receiving a confused expression. "Ha ha." I underwent a test to examine the relationship between Grandma and her daughter. In other words, between Alice's mother and her. I was baffled, blinking my eyes in confusion. "Take a good look, Alice," the grandfather grinned, comparing this DNA report with the one he brought. The grandfather began to explain the format, noting that the style of the document is completely different. When I reflexively looked at him, beads of sweat were forming on his forehead. He further explained. When he helped me set up the Wi-Fi, he sarcastically suggested that I should attend computer classes for old folks. Feeling slighted, I decided to attend one where I met a doctor from Joseph's hospital. I found it perplexing why the appraisal was conducted at Joseph Hospital. Truth is stranger than fiction, huh? When I saw the appraisal result that Alice brought, I wondered why it was done at Joseph Hospital instead of the Harris Maternity Clinic where Alice gave birth. I assumed that if it was the maternity clinic, they would have conducted the test using Alice's saliva, so there couldn't be any mistake. As the grandfather spoke up to this point, his eyes were already floating in disbelief. When I asked the doctor at Joseph Hospital, he was furious. After further discussions with the doctor, he suggested that showing you our official document would clearly expose the lie. So he began to tremble. This amounts to forgery of private documents. The doctor at Joseph's Hospital was furious. You should prepare for some serious repercussions. Jacob finally teared up. Sorry, was all he managed. It was reckless. I never thought I'd get caught. What do you mean, never thought? That makes it even more unforgivable. The grandfather sharply reprimanded him. Jacob begged for forgiveness, bringing his hands together and rubbing his head on the table. I have no intention of forgiving you. I want to make this a tale to take to the grave. So, I'll tell you how I uncovered the lie. The roles of the detective and the suspect reversed. Listening to Alice's claim, I decided to investigate using my computer skills. I recently acquired some new skills, and what I found was astonishing. The grandfather brought out the computer, turned it on, and logged in with practiced movements. He double-clicked an icon for Google Chrome. This is Google Chrome, I corrected, recalling a humorous routine my grandparents often performed. Right, Google Chrome. Actually, somewhere my grandparents were performing a herbivore comedic routine. I decided to do an image search for DNA test certificate. To my surprise, the very first image that came up was identical to the document my husband initially showed me. He had suggested attending a computer class, and there I learned about image search. The arrogant remarks he had thrown at the grandfather had come back to haunt him. Now, naturally, we're curious about the motive behind this forgery. The grandfather thrust a bundle of papers towards him, who was sobbing with a runny nose. I hacked into your computer, the grandfather stated. Upon hearing the surprisingly technical skills, Jacob reflexively raised his head. Hacking? It wasn't just him who shouted, I did too. To be precise, I snooped into your computer, the one in your room. How? The password must be 2398 or 1173, huh? He started moving his mouth in astonishment. How did you know? How did you know that? I heard it from a retired cop I met in a computer class. The servers around this area mostly use 2398 or 1173 in their PIN. I exclaimed in realization. Yes, it means going off the thought the senior network at the computer class is something to be feared. So I tried inputting it on a whim, and lo and behold, I got access, just like Grandpa's progress. And then Grandpa continues cracking. The pen is impressive, but there's more. I find myself getting excited about Grandpa's rapid progress with the computer. You know, when you look at the timeline on Google Maps, it shows all of your activity, your history. What? His sweat is now dripping from his chin onto the table. The ink on the fake DNA test report is smudging, so I investigated. And just so you know, this wasn't taught in class. I found this method by searching tirelessly to protect my precious grandchild. I searched for all the days when Alice came to vent, and the days you went surfing. I was stunned. All the destinations were shady motels. Here is the printed proof. Grandpa slammed a stack of papers onto the table, but this alone won't cut it. This is more than enough, don't you think? Ready to confess? Yes, no, I can't. If you say no, then ignoring Jacob, Grandpa brought over a tablet. I borrowed all the data saved on your computer. Allowing messages to be viewed on the computer backfired on you. I borrowed all the data, flirting with this woman called I've obtained the photos exchanged in the messages too, and he couldn't say a thing. Grandpa delivers the final blow. It was you who told me to go to the computer class, wasn't it? How dare you neglect your heavily pregnant wife at such a delicate time? Realize the lowly act you have done as a man. You don't deserve to be the father of my adorable great-grandchild. You framed Alice for cheating and hurt her, and you used your own child as an excuse to frolic with your mistress. It's absolutely disgraceful. You deserve to be punished. He could only bow down in submission, adding insult to injury. Grandpa said, I've copied the forged data from the DNA test report you made as evidence of your criminal activity. finally rendering him completely incapacitated. Thus, well, naturally, I've transferred all that data onto this tablet. The tablet screen that Grandpa opened was flooded with evidence of infidelity. Messages like, "Hotel Lagoon, it was nice, and I really want us to be a real couple soon, winky face." By the way, the icon for Meili isn't a photo. I ended up deciding to divorce him right after giving birth. I received a hefty amount of compensation for his adultery, and, of course, from his mistress as I made him pay child support. Well, I made him pay child support in a lump sum, so financially, I've gotten a bit comfortable. I'm thinking of looking for a daycare for my child to attend soon. As the saying goes, when the money is gone, so is the relationship. And it was exactly the case with him and his mistress. I got inundated with crying emails from Jacob saying, "I'm broke, and the woman has left me. Please take me back." But I promptly blocked him. More importantly, he's being sued by Joseph's clinic for forging private documents. There's no way. I could never reconcile with such a person. Meanwhile, my child has been lovingly welcomed by my grandparents, and recently, they've started to chuckle at the sound of the bell when hitting a stuffed roly-poly toy with their fists. Children grow up fast. "Looks just like Grandma, doesn't she? She's going to be a beauty," Grandpa says. "No way. She's going to be much more beautiful than me," Grandma laughs too. "Let's take pictures and make a photo movie. A baby's face changes every day." Grandpa, in a good mood, headed to his beloved computer. "Thank you, Grandpa. Thank you, Grandma. I really love you both. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you resonated with the content, I appreciate it." Almost a decade ago, in my 33, I found myself grappling with the uncertainties surrounding my husband's prolonged absences. Despite anticipating challenges in our life together due to his dedicated work ethic even before marriage, the reality of him seldom being at home left me feeling isolated. Initially, I attempted to create a relaxing atmosphere for him during his rare visits, but my growing frustration gave way to harshness. Each time I glimpsed his face, my discontent surfaced, leading my husband to try to pacify me. However, if my dissatisfaction persisted, he resorted to ignoring me. I yearned for his attention, hoping he would see me amid his busy schedule, especially considering our marital bond. Unfortunately, my emotions overwhelmed me, preventing me from viewing my husband objectively. Our disagreements became frequent, with his reassurances of settling down soon and fulfilling promises of visiting our cherished island never materializing. Expressing my concerns, I questioned whether his work held greater importance than our relationship, suggesting he shouldn't force himself to come home if that were the case. Exhausted and saddened by the realization, my husband's lack of reaction to my hurtful words fueled a growing sense that our marriage was on the verge of collapse. His ability to sense my emotional detachment only confirmed my waning affection for him. Initially, I hadn't suspected anything amiss, given his frequent business trips. However, my suspicions heightened when I stumbled upon a hotel receipt and membership card in his suit pocket after one such trip. The receipt revealed an overnight stay at the hotel on a day when he was supposedly on a business trip out of town, accumulating points for multiple nights. As a successful professional, my husband enjoyed popularity among his female colleagues, and it seemed he might have found companionship elsewhere. The evidence pointed to the possibility that he had formed a connection with another woman. Why should I endure hardship while he revels in the company of another woman? I started going out more, even making plans on weekends, attempting to find enjoyment despite my husband's infidelity. It was entertaining for a while, but the facade wore thin. The effort to maintain a smile and the inability to genuinely relish the moments became exhausting. Maybe it's time for both my husband and me to break free, avoiding each other and evading the roles of husband and wife. If he finds happiness with someone else, perhaps that's preferable. It seems like it's time for me to embrace the next chapter of my life. Yet, he was the husband I once loved, until the realization hit that I didn't want to spend the rest of my life with him. Summoning the courage to ask for a divorce wasn't easy, and I questioned if there were any alternatives. However, it appears my husband has found a new girlfriend after days of contemplation. I reached a decision and sent a text message to my husband, urging him to come home early as I needed to discuss something important. The anticipation of his response was palpable. His reply was swift, expressing a willingness to leave work as soon as possible to engage in the conversation. Strangely, a fleeting thought crossed my mind that he might not desire a divorce, despite my resolute decision. However, the reality hit hard. My husband was also contemplating a divorce, and the revelation struck me so intensely that I found it difficult to catch my breath. My husband's heart had already ventured elsewhere. Determined to face the situation with strength, I resolved not to shed any more tears. I wanted to conclude things with a smile. With my decision made, I waited for my husband's return, and shortly after 11 p.m., he came home. He had shed an unexpectedly significant amount of weight. Although his kind eyes and familiar tone persisted, an unbridgeable gap seemed to have emerged between us. My husband, not known for verbosity, kept his gaze lowered and remained mostly silent as I spoke. Desiring a respectful conclusion to our conversation, I felt a pang of frustration at his apparent detachment. We were a married couple, albeit for a brief period on the verge of divorce. Why wouldn't he express his feelings? Growing increasingly agitated, I began to argue, hoping for some form of response. However, my husband maintained his silence, attentively listening to my words. Frustrated by his lack of communication, I decided to confront him about his new girlfriend, thinking he might be underestimating my awareness. I wanted him to acknowledge the situation, to say something. When I disclosed my knowledge of his new relationship, my husband, perhaps surprised, briefly smiled. After a momentary pause, he inquired, "What do you know?" I replied, somewhat mysteriously. I couldn't help but burst into laughter at his joking tone, which, in turn, elicited laughter from my husband. For the first time in a long while, we shared genuine laughter, irrespective of the conversation topic. It brought me immense joy to rediscover that connection with my husband. Following this, we found ourselves able to talk again, and it felt oddly rejuvenating. Perhaps it was the revelation that I was aware of his affair that lifted a weight. My husband's countenance seemed revitalized. He expressed a desire to cease our verbal attacks, emphasizing that his wish to stay wasn't out of obligation, but genuine affection. We agreed to my proposal, deciding to tidy up our shared space and sort our possessions, transforming them into precious memories. Although sentimental, these were things I initially wanted to keep concealed. Contrary to his usual inclination to cling to items accumulated over the years, my husband, today, didn't hesitate to let them go. His humility overwhelmed me even further as he urged, "Take anything you want. It's all my fault. Consider it my atonement." He spoke as the room gleamed with cleanliness and order, containing only remnants of each other's belongings. There was a hint of tears in my husband's eyes as he made this observation. Was he feeling a sense of melancholy while tidying up? The sentiment was unmistakable, resonating with the emotions I, too, experienced. Recognizing this shared sentiment, I suggested, "You still have time to think about it. Let's take it one step at a time." Deciding to take a break for the remainder of the day, I immersed myself in a relaxing bath to clear my mind. While I knew I could seek compensation from my unfaithful husband, it was evident that our relationship had already reached its conclusion. Moreover, I was unwilling to further tarnish the memories of our time together. As I prepared for bed after the bath, my husband entered the bedroom. Climbing into bed, he tenderly drew me into his arms. "Hey, this is weird, and I feel bad for your girlfriend," I remarked. My husband responded quietly, "Just one more time. I want to be by your side." I tensed slightly as he wrapped his arms around me, sensing the trembling in his body. "Are you crying?" I inquired, but he remained silent. As I stroked his back, I noticed a noticeable weight loss and a more delicate, bony frame. "Are you sure you're well? You seem to have shed some pounds," I expressed my concern. In response, his body stopped shaking, and he confessed, "I've been cutting weight." Pulling away from our embrace, he took a deep breath. "Okay, is there anything else I should know? Are you sure you're okay?" It had been a while since I had touched my husband's body, and I was taken aback by how different it looked from before. His physique, once stocky and muscular, had undergone a transformation. Despite being someone who enjoyed working out even during busy times, he confided in me, saying, "She likes me like this." Once again, sadness enveloped me. He's doing it for her. Why doesn't he just forget about me if he enjoys being with her so much that he loses weight? I contemplated. I see. Then there's no need to cry because it's the last day, or is it tears of joy to keep my sadness at bay? I uttered something sarcastic, an unnecessary remark. You're still the same. I like that part of you too. I wish you a happy life from tomorrow. I'll be praying for you wherever you are, my husband said casually. After sharing those words, my husband started snoring, moving at his own pace until the end. I hope so as well, I whispered to his sleeping face before drifting into sleep. The following day, I overslept due to staying up late cleaning the room. When I awoke, my husband was no longer in bed. Entering the living room, I noticed an A2-sized envelope on the table. Upon opening it, I found a notebook and a stack of documents inside. I diligently went through the belongings and found that they were related to marital property. Surprisingly, there was a considerable sum of money in the bank book under my name. Among the discoveries was a small envelope containing divorce papers, with my husband's section already filled out. Panic set in as I tried to reach my husband on his cell phone, only to find it disconnected, presumably canceled. Desperate for information, I spent days probing his whereabouts with family and friends, but none offered any insights. Forced to contact his workplace, I learned that my once workaholic husband had resigned months earlier. The question lingered: why such secrecy, and why was I left in the dark? Growing increasingly suspicious and unable to contact my husband, the mental fatigue I'd been carrying since the divorce almost overwhelmed me. Despite the compensation he arranged for me, I felt the need to seek solace in a place I truly cherished. Arriving at a remote island that took nearly a day to reach from the mainland, I found myself in a depopulated paradise with around 5,000 inhabitants. My husband and I had visited this island before, enchanted by its natural beauty and unhurried pace. Recalling his promise to return once his work was finished, I decided to embrace the tranquility of the island. After resigning from my job and renting out our house, I made the bold move to relocate to this remote haven. It was a risk, but the burden of memories in our old house became too much to bear. Despite not knowing how my husband managed to settle the mortgage, I was aware of his relentless efforts. Nevertheless, the need for a fresh start away from the haunting memories prevailed. I was determined not to squander the efforts my husband had invested, but the mysteries surrounding various aspects of his actions left me with unanswered questions, and I could no longer seek his clarifications. Opting to spend time on the serene island he once promised to return to, I embarked on a journey of relaxation and self-discovery. Gradually adjusting to island life, I found solace in becoming acquainted with my neighbors. Despite possessing sufficient assets to sustain a comfortable life without employment, the emptiness of idleness began to weigh on me. Seeking purpose, I decided to work as a helper, aiding the elderly residents with their concerns. Initially viewed as an outsider, my increasing familiarity with the work eventually led to my acceptance as a member of the island community. As I settled into this new chapter, a coworker informed me that a new client had arrived from the main island for medical treatment. He had fallen ill, and, recognizing the absence of available treatment options, chose this tranquil island as his final abode. Moving to a place with no medical facilities posed a considerable challenge, and I wondered about the difficulties he might face in such a condition. When the new client requested a visit, and I happened to be the only one available, I, despite my apprehensions, made my way to his house. Perched on a hill overlooking the ocean, the small house had undergone renovations to make it habitable after being vacant for a significant period. Although it now provided basic shelter from the elements, I couldn't help but question whether it was the most suitable place for him to spend his remaining days. Approaching the door, I pressed the doorbell, and a faint voice welcomed me inside. With a mix of concern and curiosity, I entered the modest dwelling. I discovered my client seated by a window, bathed in sunlight and wind. The backlighting made it challenging to see his face, so I approached, squinting. Politely, I began, "It's a pleasure to meet you today, sir." As he turned to face me, I was left utterly speechless. There, sitting before me, was not just any client, but my ex-husband. We both stood in stunned silence, captivated by the unexpected encounter. Breaking the silence, my husband initiated the conversation, admitting, "You found me out," with a mischievous smile reminiscent of the past. Confused and struggling to process his presence, I couldn't articulate myself properly. My husband took my hand, urging me to sit beside him. As we sat in silence, grappling with the surreal moment, a voice echoed from the doorway. I dried my tears and opened the door, revealing an elderly man standing there. He seemed taken aback by my tear-stained face, but he politely bowed, entered, and took a seat next to my husband. Inquiring about our well-being, he spoke in a gentle, soft voice. My husband assured him that everything was ordinary and engaged in conversation with the elderly man, likely the island's sole doctor. I recalled my colleagues mentioning that the island had no inpatient facilities, making the clinic nurse and doctor vital to the community. It became apparent that my husband had chosen the island for his final days. Despite his decision, I listened closely to their discussion, eager to find any way I could assist. After about 10 minutes of casual conversation, the doctor left. Unable to resist, I followed after him. When I confronted the doctor about my relationship with my husband, he seemed understanding. However, when I inquired about my husband's condition and future treatment, he insisted that he couldn't provide details without my husband's consent. The doctor did express sympathy and shared that my husband wouldn't be able to walk on his own very soon. Concerned about him spending his final days alone, the doctor urged me to be there for him. Stunned by this revelation, I returned to the house with heavy steps, where my husband awaited. He seemed to have anticipated my conversation with the doctor and greeted me with a smile, saying, "You're back." Unable to imagine a life without him, I requested to spend the night. My husband's house consisted of only a few belongings and a couple of futons. It marked the first time I had slept beside him since we discussed divorce. As we nestled under the covers, we began sharing our respective journeys that led us to this moment. I was eager to inquire about his illness, but I decided it wasn't the right time to delve into painful topics. Instead, we chose to reminisce, a choice influenced by my emotions regarding his past relationship. Wondering if he had brought her to the island before I requested to stay, I cautiously asked. However, he merely laughed and evaded the topic, hinting at some underlying sadness. Careful not to hurt his feelings, I refrained from pressing further. The next day, I informed my employer about the situation and opted to take some time off. I wanted to cherish the time my husband had left. Pushing him in a wheelchair, as he couldn't walk far, we explored the island. I guided him to places I remembered from my previous visit and shared new scenic spots. The satisfaction of being together in those moments was immeasurable. Reflecting on our time, I couldn't help but wish that we had been more open with each other during our marriage. Even after our divorce, I found that my feelings for him had grown stronger. However, there was nothing I could do about it now. Telling him might only confuse him, so I decided to stay by his side like a friend. Though there were moments of joy, the disease was gradually taking its toll on my husband. His physical strength had deteriorated to the point where going out or taking the long-awaited walks became impossible. Even daily tasks became challenging, and he started dozing off more frequently. The doctor visited daily, providing some relief that he was no longer in pain. It was hard to believe that this was a natural progression, and the realization that he would leave me soon was difficult to accept. I nursed my husband, never leaving his side for a second, ensuring he wouldn't be alone when he awoke, which could happen at any time. At times, he would wake up and share the remnants of the dream he just had, while on other occasions, he'd recount memories from long ago as if they were unfolding in the present. Every moment was cherished, but this love only intensified my sorrow. Gradually, my husband ceased waking up after those instances. During the silent moments, I stayed by his side, reading his favorite books, and describing the sights and sounds he might have missed, hoping he could somehow comprehend. One day, wanting to share the beauty of a sunset, I held his hand and attempted to speak to him. His hand felt cold, his breath barely noticeable, and his chest moved in an unnatural rhythm. Panic set in, and I urgently called the doctor, who assured me he would be there soon. As I waited, my heart felt as if it were being torn from my chest, the situation spiraling out of control. I desperately hoped it was a misunderstanding, yearning for reassurance that everything would be fine. However, when the doctor arrived, he examined my husband and solemnly remarked, "His blood pressure has already dropped significantly. Let him go in peace. I believe he wants you to stay with him, so I'll sit this one out. Don't worry, I'll be right there if anything happens, so please stay by his side." With that, the doctor bid farewell to my husband and left. The moment had arrived. Though anticipated, it felt unbearable. I expressed, "I was delighted to have met you. There were some challenges, but the truth is that I adore you." Holding my husband's hand, I whispered in his ear. Surprisingly, he gently squeezed my hand back. It seemed medically impossible, yet I distinctly felt it. Shortly after, he took his last breath and departed peacefully. I couldn't hold back my tears, but I found solace in being there for him in his final moments. The days following his passing were so hectic that I didn't have a chance to grieve until after the burial. Upon returning home and sorting through my husband's belongings, I noticed a mountain of letters that had accumulated. As I went through them, one by one, I was moved by the nostalgic handwriting. My husband had written dozens of letters, and it made me reflect on how long it had been since we spent each day together, trying to be as close as possible. The letters traced back to the day of our reunion. My husband, who had moved here in the hope of encountering me again, didn't anticipate actually finding me. The letters captured his surprise and delight, expressing, "I couldn't stop laughing at how funny my husband's letters were." Knowing that he felt this way was the best compliment he could have given me. In the course of reading the letters, I noticed a poignant shift. The dates and the content indicated that he had been posting them daily, but a noticeable change occurred in his handwriting, becoming progressively more erratic and the letters growing shorter. It was a stark demonstration of the deterioration of his health over time. As I continued with a heavy heart, one revelation struck me. He had candidly addressed the truth about our divorce. His illness had begun during our marriage, and when he discovered it, medical interventions proved futile. The treatments, attempted as a last resort, were ineffective and accompanied by severe side effects. My husband, facing the harsh reality of his condition, made plans to divorce me. His motivation was rooted in the desire for me not to spend the rest of my life burdened by his illness. I unwittingly walked into the trap he had set. Unbeknownst to him, I had suspicions about another woman's involvement, but he chose not to deny it, believing that offering substantial compensation would ease the situation, especially as I no longer required medical treatment. In his letter, my husband expressed his desire to liquidate all our assets so that I could live freely. Those words cut deep, revealing the extent of his consideration for a life without me. Overwhelmed, I offered a sincere apology as tears flowed uncontrollably. At that vulnerable moment, a knock on the front door interrupted my grief. Swiftly wiping my tears, I opened the door to find my doctor standing there. Curious about his visit, I inquired, and he handed me a sealed envelope identical to the one I had just read from my husband. It turned out to be a continuation of his letters, written in the days before he fell into a coma. He had entrusted them to the doctor, asking me to post one every day. Unable to refuse this final request, I accepted the responsibility of delivering his thoughts. The doctor assured me that this was the last letter, and I felt a mix of emotions as I took hold of the envelope, understanding the weight of its contents. He requested that I give it to you upon your return home. So that's what this was about. My husband's final letter. Expressing my gratitude to the doctor, I retreated to read it in solitude. As I opened the letter quietly and calmly, I discovered a thin yet clear note that simply said, "Thank you, I love you." Despite the vast journey we had undertaken, our hearts remained connected. Responding with, "I love you too," I felt a faint smile from my husband's portrait. Decades after his passing, I am now officially recognized as an island resident. I erected a grave next to where my husband's house once stood, embracing the decision that I would never leave the island. Just as he used to look out the window every day, I am certain he still does. One day, I intend to join him there, finding peace and immense happiness surrounded by memories of my husband. I appreciate your unwavering support until